Testing 1, 2, 3. How's everyone doing? You guys can hear me?
Yep.
Oh, cool. Perfect. Hold on, getting everyone logged in. We got a lot to go over today. So, hey, there's a chance I might be in another deal in Newport Beach.
Sweet. Yeah,
Let's
we'd love to
go.
have you back.
It's I wrote an offer yesterday for 6.25 million on a house.
Amazing.
It's a big one. So it's 6.25. We'll put a mil in, and then this would be the new biggest flip. We'd probably be targeting 9.5 to 10 million on the dispo. So just when I thought I was getting going in Arizona, I'm back possibly on the West Coast.
Is it East Side Costa Mesa again? Same area?
It is Dover Shores.
Oh, sweet. Very nice.
Yeah, it's actually the house that I was living in for 4 years. And I kept
Comes
trying to
full
buy it off
circle.
them, and then they listed it. And I gave him a pretty solid number, but I know exactly, I know the house like the back of my hands. It's a killer spot. So it's, in my opinion, is the best street in Dover Shores.
Nice.
But we will see. It's
Are you still
expensive one.
looking for deals out there, James?
What was that?
Are you still looking for deals out there if they come up?
I am. I'm trying to get going in Arizona a little bit. A little bit cautious of the inventory in Arizona though right now. There's a lot of actives, and so I'm kind of learning that. And I wasn't planning on. I was kind of getting. I mean, we've been buying a lot in Seattle. But just I know this house. You know what? You guys, this could be a giant mistake. You guys all hear this because I might be a little bit in love with this house. I love the house. Um, I do think it's kind of a one of a kind house. So I will be setting. It's worth it. I'll probably do one big one at a time, but I want to stick to Newport because I know it really well. Um, there's so many swings. So you guys, and this is important. You guys, as you look at going into different markets, what are you looking at? Like understanding that market and taking your time to do the research will make a huge difference whether you'll be successful or not. Like the deal I flipped in Newport, on paper, a lot of people are like, why are you buying that? Like they couldn't, but I just knew that street and the exclusivity of that street. And I knew we could sell it for good money. Just because it had novelty, had a view, it was on the right location. You drive the street, feels good. And in Newport, if you have that product, you can get pretty big money for it. So I'll let you know. Offer is in front of the trust right now. So if it gets signed, I'll be hopping on a plane and we'll be going right through the same motions. So but it will be a big one. Right, people are kind of getting logged on. How's everyone else doing? Enough about me. Who's got good things going? Before we jump in, who had a win last week?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we are in escrow right now, and all of our contingencies have been removed.
Okay, same deal we've
And
been
we don't,
talking about too.
yeah.
Okay.
So we don't close until April 3rd because there's tenants in there right now. And the listing agent is denying us the right to like access the property. Like we want to have a few contractors go in, give us a bid, and we also need a full appraisal our lender, like our hard money lender requires it. So they did a drive-by appraisal already in order to like give us a soft approval, but they need like that full appraisal. But the listing agent isn't letting us in. Do we have any leverage to be able to get in there now that our contingencies are removed?
Ooh, this is a good question, you guys. Because I've been in that situation numerous times where I'm like, wait, I can't get in the house, especially when I'm like buying it from another wholesaler or something. Um, what does it say on so what does it say on the purchase and sale?
Let me see if Nicole's on. I don't think she's on yet.
Do you guys have
I think we
financing
had something
addendum in
about,
there at
I'm
all?
on. Sorry, I
oh,
missed the
hi,
beginning of all
Nicole.
of this. So I have no idea what we're
Basically
talking about.
asked if we have, I asked if we have any leverage to access the home, given that our contingencies have been removed. And we do have like a reasonable access clause, but that's,
It's just a standard CAR. It's a standard California real estate agreement, which has a reasonable access clause. Yeah. Well, we did
Oh,
waive
and
appraisal contingency and financing contingency. So I don't know if we have, I'd like to stand on that we, our lender still does want to do an appraisal.
okay, and why is there so much friction with this broker? Why, what is it? Are they?
I think she's just upset that we managed to get a 70K price reduction out of her. Basically, we put in a price. It was supposed to be all as is. As we did our GC walks, because we had a 5-day inspection contingency, we realized there was a shit ton of cast iron and slab that we needed to resin line. There was issues with the roof. And then the drive-by appraisal, because we were trying to make this happen so fast, came in 70K under. I will say, I think those guys used terrible comps.
Who's
But
the
we used
lender?
all well, so that was Conventus is who it was going to be. I think we're probably going to use a different lender ultimately.
Okay.
But we used all of that to essentially get 70K off the price. Because they didn't want to go back to market again. So I think she's just kind of upset with us because of that 70K reduction. She's like, you said you would take it as is, blah, blah, blah. And she's just been upset because of that.
But you are taking it as is. You're buying it.
Right.
You're just trying to be efficient and get people through. And so, like, I think at this point, what I would do in
I mean,
this
to be
scenario is just
fair, we don't care too much about that appraisal. Like that can wait. We have options for lenders that we're confident in. What we care more about is being able to get our contractors in there before we close. Like we want to have a plan in place before we close, not like enter April 3rd and start planning.
yeah, no, you want to get so right now. So one tip for everybody, you guys, because I have been stuck with this, is when you have kind of a scenario like this, we always say, we roll right on a separate addendum saying we want access within 48 hours notice when the seller signs that agreement, or as we're working through, so then you can get people through. And you guys, if you're wholesaling or your broker or doing any of that, you always want that in your agreement too, so your buyers can get their people through. But at this
Okay, so
point,
explicitly have that in the agreement you're saying. 48
yeah,
hours
I just
notice.
throw it
Yeah, as an
on.
addendum. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. We have an addendum that they have to deliver vacant upon close and that they had to give the tenant 60-day notice, but I didn't think to add that one on.
Yeah, I would put that in there for everyone. It's just because it's weird when you won't get access sometimes. You're like, what do you mean I can't get access? And so one thing I would say is at this point, I would just get the broker on the phone and just say, hey, look, we're not trying to be disruptive. We're taking it as is. This property is closing, but we're just trying to get through this deal as we're waiting for tenants, right, to close. And, what can we do to make it easier on the tenants, make it easier on you just to get bids through, and try to kill them with kindness at this point. And if they won't give you any access, especially for your appraisal, and maybe you need it, that's still that should be covered under reasonable access. And if they weren't, then I have my attorney fire off a letter to them. Like because if you need that appraisal done, you need the appraisal done.
Right. Okay. We were using honestly the guise of the appraisal as like that is something that she's required to give access for. That way we can just, we can just get it all done at one time, like have our contractors walk, get the appraisal done, because that's something that I feel like is very like, I don't know, it's pretty obvious that that's something that needs to happen and that you need to give access for, as opposed to it being like something we would just like to be able to go and take measurements to walk it with our contractor.
Yeah, and also reasonable request can be, hey, the plumbing's cast iron underneath, and we're worried that it could be leaking, which could cause further damage to the property. So give us access to inspect that and make sure that's okay. And regardless, it's not going to affect the price or how we're going to close on things.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but
So kill them
try
with
to be,
kindness and then involve an attorney.
yeah, that's always best to be super sweet with them.
Okay.
You know, and just say, hey, look, nothing's happening. We're just trying to be efficient, just like you would if you were buying a home. And, you know, we don't want to disrupt your tenants, but, you know, we do need access. What can we do to make it easy on the tenants and on you?
Yep.
But yeah, definitely a good question because I've been stuck with, I had that recently. I'm like, what do you mean we can't get, and I had to get on the phone with the broker. But yeah, anytime you guys it's occupied, I like to throw that in those agreements. So, all right, well, we're going to jump right into it because as we know, these little spot training calls have been going a little bit longer, and we're going to dive in deep. And I want to make sure people can ask a lot of different questions about this because today we are talking about, let's get this on the screen, construction processes, just how you're running your job site. Just some key things that I do or you should implement in your process to make sure that you're staying on top of your job site. You guys, I could talk about this for 10 hours about little things that you can be doing on your job site. So I'm going to hit the broad things that I use to more manage my job sites and manage my team. And then I'm going to open it up for questions about anything that has to do with construct. I mean, any question you guys have, like always, if you have something, just like we were talking about access to a project or about your job site or getting it going. So let's dive right in because these have been going longer, but I've thoroughly enjoyed these calls, you guys, these training calls. I think they've been really impactful. It's going to help. I'm going to be doing this a little bit more throughout the year now, where we're digging into these little mini training sessions.
Same, James. They have been really helpful. And honestly, when people ask me about like why I joined this mastermind group, this is the number one thing that's been, I think, the value that we get out of this.
Okay, so you guys all like these little spot trainings.
100%.
Okay, then I
They've been
will.
very timely for our flip too, like the design, the underwriting, comps.
Yeah, and that's what we want to cover, you guys, is basics, right? Like the basics of getting going. And you guys, this works for flipping for your brokers out there that are working with clients with whether it's you're running a rental property. These are all the same core concepts that we're using throughout these training calls. And so I will definitely be breaking down more of these, especially we'll wrap in some of these other courses that we're doing, like the private money lending. And so I'll make sure we keep that on the docket. But let's jump into it. Okay. Managing your construction plan, you guys. So what we're going to talk about tonight is just establishing the plan, hiring the team, tracking your budgets, and managing your job sites. These are kind of the core four. Like after you purchase that property, what happens from there? And, you know, on some of these other training calls, we've talked about design. The design helps with planning your allowances, looking at the comps, implementing those allowances into your budgeting. The call before was on budgeting, like how to use the budget, what to look for, how to start implementing those things in. And now it's about, hey, we closed. What do we do from there? Because when you one of the biggest mistakes I see investors make is they hire a general contractor and they go, well, I hired a general contractor. They're going to run the site now. They're going to manage the site. That's why I'm hiring them. That would be great if that happened in theory. But our jobs as investors is to manage this investment and manage the people working, whether they are general contractors, subcontractors, or employees. We have to be able to manage them from a high level. And so the first thing that we want to do as we jump in is getting your deal prepped, right? You've just closed on the property. Or, you know, what we were just talking about is Nicole was just talking about they're closing on this property. They're trying to get their contractors through, get their estimates. But then before we hire that contractor and prepping your construction plan, before you bring the people in and rush a contractor in there, don't make, well, you guys, I just want to check something really quick. I want to make sure people aren't stuck outside real quick. All right, we're good. It's not about rushing into your project. And I see this happen quite a bit. And I used to be the king of that. Like soon as I would close on a property, I was installing roofs, I was getting windows put in, and I was just like, I'm going to guerrilla this project out. But then what happened is it would start kind of sloppy, and we were just trying to get it moving forward because the cost of hard money is expensive, the debt's expensive. But we had a lot of different change orders, a lot of different cost overruns, and a lot of different issues. And so before you start, you've just closed on your project. The first thing that you want to do, and the thing that we always do, is we want to review the comps. Okay, you've been on contract for this property for 30 days, 60 days, maybe it was 2 weeks. You looked at it, you liked the numbers, and you're going, okay, everything's looking good. You made the decision to buy, but then before you start your project, you close on that, you have to review those comps again because you guys values swing, they change. And the comps are what we use to create our scope of work. When we walk through a project, we're not gut checking this and going, well, I think this would be good. I think this would be good. People are going to pay a lot for this because I like it. That's just not what the business that we're in are flipping. When we're flipping a home, we are taking data, taking information and going, okay, we can buy this for this, and we can sell it for this based on comps and information. Inside those comps and information, like we've talked about in our budgeting discussion, is that's going to give us our scope of work of what we have to complete on that project. How many bedrooms do we need? How many bathrooms do we need? What's the finishes? What's the appliances? What's the upgrades? And so before we start bringing contractors out and having everybody quote, we want to review those comps and really double check our budget. We then are going to confirm our budget, go through it together again, go, okay, this is what we're trying to accomplish. Let's look at our allowances again. Let's look at how many bathrooms are we adding? What's the amenities that we're adding to this project? And really narrow down that last minute scope of work change, because what we don't want to do is have this change after we've hired the contractor. That is where you will get crushed on your projects. When you have a plan that's floating, that's where contractors, there's lots of change orders happened. And when you hire a contractor, the cost of the change orders will be 2x what they would have been if you just bid it in the original scope. And so always before you start this project, review your comps, review your budget, review your allowances. Is this the plan that makes sense today? And who knows, you guys, halfway through your project, you could get new information. We'll talk about that more next week about hiring the broker and tracking that market. But when you go in, have that firm plan. Anytime I've had this floating plan, we make less money. And so a good example is my Newport Beach flip. We went in with a plan and then we started changing things. Those changes, now we changed it based on comps and what we're seeing in the market. And so it made up in the sale price, but it caused delays and it caused a lot of different change orders. And if I would have really dug into those comps a little bit more, had my broker give me a little bit better CMA, because I don't have the same information I have up in Seattle, I could have maybe firmed that plan up a little bit tighter up front. And I probably would have saved about 100 grand on my construction, about 10% of the total budget. So confirm these allowances, set the plan, and then review this plan with your contractor on site. So when we walk this projects to get our estimates, typically we're walking it with 1 to 2, maybe 3 general contractors. When we go, we have this complete set, that underwriting set that we went through. But we have our comps, we have the pictures of the comps, we have our budget of what we want to do, we have our scope of work that we want to complete, and then we have a printout of the allowances and pictures so they can see this. What you don't want to do is go out to that job site with the general and go, hey, let's walk this. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. They can't see the tangibles. The more prepared you are for that contractor walk, the easier your quoting is going to be. So once you've now prepped your plan, and again, confirm your plan before you meet the general. If you are changing your mind on site with the general on site with them, they're going to see dollars in their eyes. So confirm the plan, bring it to the contractor, direct the contractor. I do not want the contractor directing me on my plan, because once that happens, my budget is going to be smoked. Once you've now walked through the project, you confirm your plan, you've gone through it with them, You've gotten the quote back from your contractor. Now it's about reviewing the quote and looking for missing items. Where a majority of investors blow their profit is lack of detail to the estimates that they are receiving, or lack of clarity in those estimates. Many of the contractors that we hire, guys, they are not giving us. I mean, if I showed you some of the quotes I get from guys that I've worked with for 10 years, it is an absolute joke. It's like 20 different bullet points on a piece of paper. It's vague, it's open-ended. And if I commit to that, even though I've used them for 10 years, it allows for a lot of different issues on the job site. It's going to allow for a lot of different change orders, and it's going to allow for a lot of debates. And debates, you guys slow the project down. Arguments cause friction on there. And so we go through every quote and make sure that everything that we have is listed on our scope of work is included in there. So we always want to be looking for missing items. If you are signing the contractor's first quote, you have probably missed some of those items. I would say on 99% of the quotes that I get from a general contractor, they will be missing at least 5 to 10% of the items that we talked about on site. Make sure your estimates are fixed when you get them back from your contractor. Some quotes you're going to get back are going to say estimates. It's going to say estimated cost, estimated flooring cost, estimate. Those, you guys, at that point, they can change the numbers around you. And so everything that we want to do is make sure that it's fixed. It's on, the materials are included or they've been taken off if we're going to pay for them directly. And the cost is not an estimate. It's a fixed number cost based on square footage or the contractor quoting them directly. I have lost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars by hiring people with open-ended quotes. For us as investors, we take information like comps, we take purchase price, we use performance, we look at it, we go through the information, and we want to make sure we take this information and it tells us whether it's a good investment or not. We're not buying a flip property based on what we think could happen in the market or based on comps that we don't have. We don't just make up the information. Same with your construction bids. They have to be fixed. We cannot go into an investment with a floating number because it's going to give us floating results. Once we've gone through the bid and we make sure the estimate is fixed, we always check to make sure that the license information and status are still up to date. If you hire a contractor 12 months before and his license was in good standing, that can change in 6 to 12 months after. So anytime that we hire that contractor again, we check their bond, we check their status. We want to make sure that they are in good standing. Reason I do that is because in 2012-ish, I had hired a contractor, used them a bunch, and then all of a sudden we get a red tag on our door. We get this red tag, and I'm like, wait, why is there stop work order? And L&I, not only that, L&I calls us to say, hey, you have unlicensed people working on your job site. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is a contractor I've used for 5 years. Here's his bond information. We send him over the file and go, that's great. But his license isn't active anymore. He's like, when did you check it last? I'm like, well, I probably haven't checked it in 2 years. He's just been a guy we've used forever. He's like, you have to check it every time that you're hired because now they are not active and bought it. And I got the fine for that. Even though I could show them a package that we had verified hiring to them, it was our responsibility to hire them or to check every time. You guys, it changes all the time. The other thing you want to change or check on that is the reason we want to make sure it's active is sometimes they switch companies. And if they switch companies, that's a red flag. You know, if they were James Daynard Construction today or 6 months ago, and now they're JD Construction. In 6 months, it's like, why did you make the change? Why did you get a new bond? Is there other things going on? So we always want to confirm that license. We want to, again, review the estimate. Is everything included? Double check it again. Collect all the tax documents because you guys, once you hire the contractor, it's a lot harder to get the 1099 forms, the forms that we need to make sure that that we can expense them out correctly with the IRS when we sell our flips. You guys, the last thing we want to do, we pay a lot of taxes on flips, is to not be able to 1099 someone correctly. because and write off that expense because you can't get the tax documents. When a contractor wants a check, they will sign whatever documents you need to get that check. Once they're done with the job and they have their check, they're not going to come in and sign those forms because they're on to the next thing. So always collect your tax documents. Then have the contractor sign a construction contract, establish the timelines, start, stop dates, and then get it in motion. For questions about this specific hiring portion, you guys, I want you to go to Project Flip. I cover this in detail in the construction side. Go through that. Make sure you watch that because that's where I really, really break this down. Now, once you have now closed on the property, you've hired the contractor, you've checked them out, you have signed the construction contract. It is now in motion. Your plan is going forward. When you are managing your job sites, you guys, you have to be on site or have to have someone from your team on site at least weekly. This is a business. If you are running any kind of business, you cannot not check on what's going on with that business. Like if I didn't go and check on my brokerage for a few weeks or just didn't even check in, that could be a problem. There could be a lot of different fires going on and it could cause me massive issues. You have to check and monitor these things. Just because you hired a general contractor does not mean it's getting done, and it does not mean it's getting done correctly. So walk your job site weekly or have someone from your team walk it weekly and take photos. Every time that we do walk these job sites, we take detailed photos of what's going on the job site. Where's the status? The reason we also take detailed photos is because in an occasion where something comes up, there could be an issue with the quality of work. The construction, we have photos with what the contractor was doing, what was being installed, and we can document it backwards. When you do your weekly walkthroughs, don't go by yourself. Have the contractor on site and have them meet you there. You need to recap what was done that week. Did they run into any problems? Is there any sort of delays? Did something pop up? Did it, what is preventing them from completing that project? How do we get through that? What issues do we need to work through? And then what is going to be completed next week? You guys, the more accountable and the more you stay in front of that contractor, the faster your job will get done. That old saying of the squeaky wheel gets the grease, that is true. If I have a contractor I've worked with for years and they get, you guys, this is a great example. So in Newport Beach, I was traveling a ton because we had started filming. We had a lot going on in Seattle. I had a general contractor on site, but I couldn't meet him there every week because I wasn't there every week. And I didn't have that point person to meet there every week too. And I just thought it was getting done. I check on the weekends, take photos, look at it. And what happens is, even though the contractor was a good dude, he was trying to do good work. He had other clients he was also working for, and they were in his ear. So they go to where the fire is. And because I was so distracted, I probably lost weeks off my job site or even a month or so just because I couldn't meet them there to be accountable. And every time I did meet them there on site and go over what had happened, what had been completed the last couple of weeks instead of week, and what they were doing next, a lot of work would get done. And so always have that contractor make it time in your schedule, have them meet you on site. What have they completed? What is on next? This is another perfect time to recap the draw schedule, because what do contractors want? They want money. They want the next payment, the next check. And so that's a good time for you to dangle that carrot. Hey, you got this done. You're looking good. We've already paid you this much money right now. You got this done. If you can get this done by the end of next week, I can get you a progress payment check. That will get them to move faster. I can promise you that. And so recap what's going on in the project, any type of changes, and then also go through that project and have they made any mistakes? Is the floor plan framed correctly? Have they roughed in things correctly? Last week, I walked a job site out in Ravenna. Contractor had framed the whole place out, looked great, except for there was one thing that he missed. And it was a big thing. And my project manager missed it as well. When they framed it in the basement, we had a little bit lower ceiling heights. They didn't take two of the beams and shove them up in the joists, which we had paid them for. That is going to dramatically affect the resale on that project if we don't have 6'10" ceilings all the way around down there. By them not doing that, they had framed everything. but by them not doing it, it was hampering the floor plan. And they were getting ready to start installing HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. Now, if all that goes in and then we notice that the beams aren't in there, the contractor's going to have to fix it because it was on the scope of work, but that's going to cause massive delays. They're going to have to pull out ducting. They're going to have to remove some wiring. Then they're going to have the guys come back and do the work, which is going to cost the general contractor money. And then that's going to slow things down because they're coming up with more money out of pocket. And so by me walking that and going, hey, what's going on with this beam? We are able to get it fixed before those other trades came out. So always check those job sites and walk it with a purpose. I walk with my budget. I walk it with my floor plans, and I'm going, is this correct? Does this need to be modified? If you're just going to walk through it to look at your construction project, go walk through any other project to go look at it. Walk with a purpose. Post your floor plans, your scope of work, your permits, your scope, everything needs to be posted to the job site. We post on all floors copies of the floor plans, scope of work, the design and allowances on each floor because they just disappear sometimes. And if they disappear, we put them right back up. And so the more clarity you have on the job site, the smoother and quicker that it's going to be. When you guys have clarity on the site and everything is there for the contractor, not only will it get done quicker and more efficiently, it's going to prevent change orders and issues with you guys later. Because here's, like, for example, that beams I was talking about, that was in his scope of work. It was in the floor plans. He just didn't do it. It's posted all over the site. It was emailed to him. And there's not a whole lot of arguing he can do that it was done right or wrong because it's all there for them. Now, if my plan was wrong, he has to redo it. I got to pay for that. But if he does the plan wrong, he's got to pay for it. If it's posted everywhere, there's not a whole lot of arguing. You guys, contractors will argue no matter what. Like, no, you didn't talk about that. You didn't say that. This wasn't in there. That's not what I meant in my quote. But if it's there, there's not much to argue. They just get it fixed. Now, the contractor, when we called him, he's like, dude, I've already framed it. What are you guys talking about? We're like, it's all here. It's on the plan. This is incorrect. Get it fixed. And once he saw it all, he's like, okay, fine, I'll fix it. He fixed it in 24 hours. We were back on pace. If we didn't have that all, it could have gone into a 2-3 day argument because you guys, they do not want to pay for this again. So again, clarity is key. Everything that you're using, allowances, floor plans, whatever the scope of work is, get it on site because not only does it help your general contractor, it helps their subcontractors as they're coming out to install as well. Now, visibility. And I wasn't going to do this, but we're going to pull this up in a second. For tracking you guys. So this right here is a screenshot of how we track things through Monday.com. One of the keys for especially the working professionals in here that are working your 9-to-5s, that you're flipping this first house, you're doing it more passively. You have to have a central place to stay organized. And in Project Flip, you guys, I want you to go under systems, watch that section. I really break that down. But having this is really important because at any time I need to be able to pull up the property that we're working on with what the current status is, where's my budget at, what's the specs going in, and I can review that file and go through everything, where all my invoices is, what I'm tracking at, and manage it from afar. Right now, we have like $30 million in construction in Seattle going on. At any time, I can pull this up and audit through that and look at what's going on, where are we at in the status, do I have any concerns? And so no matter what you do, whether it's one site or 10, you need to have a central area to keep all your documents, because as you scale your businesses out and as your team, you start bringing in more team members, you start building these businesses, you need a central place that you all can have the information readily available. If someone asks us for a floor plan or the allowance sheet, anyone from my team can grab it, pull it, send it off all within like 5-second just look and glance because it's all readily there. So great tracking things for this is Monday.com, Smartsheet, Google Docs, Dropbox, all those work. Right now, we're actually going to scrap Monday.com and I'm going to take it and I'm going to build it into Salesforce because we use Salesforce through our other businesses. I don't like having my teams on 2 different softwares. And so we're just going to build it into Salesforce. Plus, I can add a bunch of tasking in there. Once we're done with that, I'm going to roll it out to you guys and show you guys how I map that out. But regardless, everyone should have a central hub, right? Like even if we have passive investors in our project, if we have an equity investor, if I have a secondary lender in there, we give them access to this so they can see what's going on all the way through. And so you have to have this to be able to scale, but to keep yourself organized. Every week, my team or myself, we're going to update the pictures, the estimates, the spec selection, and the budget so I can stay on top of this project. So let me do this real quick. I wasn't going to, but we're going to do it. I'm going to pull up just so you guys can kind of get a quick overview of how we use this. And you guys, this is Monday.com. It's one of the more basic ones. We had Smartsheet for 10 years before that. Smartsheet got really expensive. It was annoying me. So I switched to Monday.com. I could say Monday's more basic. Smartsheet's a little bit better. If I had to pick between the two again, I'd pay the expense for Smartsheet. But it works for our team. And so right here, you guys, is all the projects that we currently have under construction or listed, right? So here's all the addresses. At any time, I can go to any of these projects and go, what's the status? And so in how we build this out, it's simple in nature. We have our team go through, but we have property address, what the company's name is that owns it, because I have a few different entities. Then I can click at any time on a project. Let's look at one that's going right now. So here's a project that is in Capitol Hill. From the start to the beginning, so since June 13th to January 31st, this has been a long one. It's a complete rebuild. I can see the status weekly with what's happening in that project. Now, from managing from afar, I can go through and go, okay, hey, is this done? What's going on with the progress? Is it moving forward? Should I be issuing that contract or a check? And that's why it's so important to have this information always in front of you. You know, as you're looking at getting construction draws, paying contractors, setting up weekly job sites, when are designs due? This gives me clarity. So for the last 6 months, we have weekly photos of what's going on, and at any time I can go through each photo and go, okay, is this being completed or not? You know, plumbing starting to go in. Are we on schedule? Are we off schedule? And it takes it all the way through the finished product to where we know, hate this landscaping, you guys, we're actually fixing it right now. You know, here's the finished project. And so it gives me access to photos. I can go through and look through those things. Are things getting done or not? So we scroll over. My budget sheet is on here. So I can review the current budget. Are we making changes? It's the same budget sheet that you guys have access to with our ProjectRE. We can take what's going on with the budget, what was scanned, what was not done. I can audit that. We have all of our spec sheets for here. And so everything is readily available for me. If I want to check the budget, if I want to check the status, if I want to check the design for the project, what's going on, what's being put in, do I want to make some changes? Am I checking comps? Do we want to change the style? This is the current style it's in. Am I seeing comps sell for a lot more? Do I want to upgrade my lights from $143 to $250? If I have questions about what's going on with you know, the comps, the quality, if there's a market change and I need to shift things down, maybe I drop this tile here from $21 down to 10. So it keeps it readily available. I can make decisions and tell people because it's all in front of me. In addition to, our listing brokers have access to this. So they know exactly what's going on in the project, what it's going to look like, and what we're going to be selling for as they're looking through the market. We have then every invoice, every bid, everything that we have is all also kept in here, and it's put into a closing file. So if I want to review any of our, you know, where's the money being spent? Where's it going to? Where's my current roof estimates? How much did I spend on this roof? Is there a warranty? If a buyer has a question about, hey, how long is the warranty for this roof? How long is it for the furnace? We can send them off the invoice. And so by having that central location, it's going to allow you to make decisions from afar, but also allow your team to all be on the same page. Like I don't need to call my listing broker and talk to them an hour about what the property is going to look like, because they can see it, they can see the spec, and they can see the floor plans. And so everything is centrally located so they all have access. And so you guys, if you have not started making this, I highly encourage, just like I talked about in Project Flip, that you get this established and pick the right one. You guys, Google Docs is free. If you don't want to spend any money, use Google Docs. But you have to have that central point, because even my accountants go in here and they check all the invoices. Is everything accounted for? And so it gives that central hub. Let's pull back the presentation. All right. Sorry. Okay, accounting. I cannot tell you how many times my team and even my clients, we get done with the end of the project. We think we're maybe a little bit over budget. And then all of a sudden you get the final bill and you're like, whoa, how did I spend $20,000 more, $30,000 more, sometimes $50,000 more on a project? That happens because you are not tracking your numbers. In Project Flip, actually, in almost every course that I've rolled out, you guys, I talk about how your bookkeeper and accountant are key people that you need in your business, whether it's private money lending, flipping, whatever it is. You have to be able to track those expenses and what the revenue is, and you have to be able to report it. So every 2 weeks, we have our accounting send us off a monthly P&L and a WIP on the property, every cost that we have spent to date. They also give us a report on our construction holdback. When we bought the property, we took down a construction loan. Maybe we got a $200,000 holdback. How much have we drawn against it? How much bills do we have to still pay? How much can we request back? This also helps us request our draw checks, because nothing's worse than you guys than falling way behind on your draw checks and you're struggling with those bills and you really need the check from your lender and there's a delay. And so your accountants should always give you that monthly P&L and a monthly WIP, your construction holdback. And you need to track your budgets with, so what our team does is every 2 weeks is we go through that P&L and the WIP, and we go through them and we then cross-reference it with our budget, and my team then updates our budget if we're over on an item. If we're under an item, once the roof's estimate in, the accounting's paid for it, it's then booked into our Excel spreadsheet under the budget tracking section, and that tells us whether we're over or under. And that way we can forecast and make a good decision. If I'm, for some reason, if I'm going 10% over budget, and I'm going, wow, if I sell this house today the way it's happening, I'm not going to sell it for any more. I'm just going 10% over. It gives me the chance to then change my plan. Do I want to add an additional bathroom? Do I want to do something even more special and maybe spend even more on the property to get that higher price? But by having that bi-weekly accounting, the monthly P&L, the WIP, it allows you then to make changes on the spot. You cannot change when the house is done at the very end. And so by making your changes while you're still in framing, still in electrical, still in plumbing, that's how you prevent the change orders and issues or issues selling later. So you guys, I'm going to wrap it up right now because I want to open up for questions, and we're going to open up for all different things. You guys, if you're having change orders, I was going to talk about that, but now we're starting to go down a rabbit hole that's all in Project Flip. So for a lot of this, you guys, I want you to revisit Project Flip, because it goes over on the construction, what to do with change orders, how to monitor those, different details of what we just talked about. But tips for running your job site. Do not get too far advanced on your contractor draws. It's easy to do, especially when you're new. You meet this contractor, you really like them, you think it's going well, and they're asking you for money, and you're so excited that they're getting it done that you issue them too much funds in advance. It will put you in mass liability, because if that contractor walks off, you're going to have a huge gap to fill. Or you give them too much on your construction draw, not enough work's going to be done, then you can't get the funds out of your lender and you have way too much cash out of pocket. So never advance too much on the construction draws. Always check your job site and document. Walk your job site weekly with your contractor, take photos, review the plan. All agreements must be done in writing. Wow, that was spelled wrong. Not spelled that way, guys. in writing. We have a hard rule in our office. There is no verbal. Contractor can't call us up and go, hey, look, I got to do this. Are you cool if I do this? It's going to cost $500. They can do that, but they have to send a text or an email confirming the information. If I call the contractor and go over maybe a little bit of modifications and changes, I'm sending it to them in text after I'm done with that conversation. Always, always, always have it in writing, never verbal. Before you start your job site, you guys, one little tip that's through in here is to introduce yourself to all your neighbors and make sure they have your contact or someone on your team's contact information. This will save you delays, complaints, and if the neighbors like you, it will make you a lot easier to get your job site done. If neighbors start calling the city and going, hey, these people are blocking our roads, they're, if you get on bad terms with your neighbors, it can really slow down your job site. And so we make a point to introduce ourselves to everybody. They have our contact information. If they have any issues, call us. We will fix it. Don't call the city, because once they start bringing in the city, it causes delays. So sweet talk your neighbors. The more people around you know you, they like you, the easier your life will be. Read your estimates, guys. You heard me say about this last 30 minutes. Read them, read them, read them. Just because you walked about it or walked around a project and you talked about it does not mean it's included in their estimate. Majority of change orders are done on lack of clarity on the bid or lack of clarity and the investor just didn't read their estimate correctly. Make sure all costs are included, your taxes, your material, your labor, it's all included. There should be no float, no variable on there. And then stick to your allowances unless the data shows differently. If the house has not gone up in value and your allowances on your original plan were good, do not change them. Stick to your allowances, be disciplined, keep those in front of you. If my team knows we just can't go above it, then we got to figure it out for below it. But if I don't stick to those allowances, it creates bad behaviors, then you have cost overruns, and it will dilute and kill off your profit. So now you guys, what I want to do, because again, this is a big topic. I know a lot of people have a lot of job sites going on. We're going to open it up for what's going on with your job sites. And you guys, depending on where you're at right now, whether you're trying to find contractors, find resources, if you're having issues on that job site, let's talk about it. But I'm going to open it up for you guys. Alicia.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Can you even show us like a good contractor bid? Because do you have them outline the like material and the labor separately? I know that you have your spec sheet where you kind of outline everything that you want in there. I'm just curious how they kind of compiled all that, in the I guess the bid.
Yeah, I can, let me, as we're talking, I'll pull one up on my email. Yeah, it's all about the verbiage, right? Like it's like if a bad bid would say install new flooring. Like, I mean, I see that countless amounts of times from general contractors. Like, what do you mean install the flooring? What kind of flooring? Where's it going? Is it carpet in the basement? Is it hardwoods? And so those are the specifics that we want, right? Like install new flooring means installing pre-finished hardwoods on main level in kitchen, dining, living room, and hallways. Allowance at this, right? Because they also need to reference the allowance or material included. I either will say, hey, have material included or allowance up to this amount. I would say most guys that we get quotes from and that we use for our flipping company, they don't put in the allowances in their quotes. Now, when we have them sign their bids, the construction contract that we drew up for everyone, and it's the one I use, it ties them all together. So they have their estimate, then we have our scope of work, and then we have our allowance page, and we have everybody sign each page of that. So the contractor signing the allowance page, he's referencing that's included inside of his quote. And the construction contract references those things and it ties it all together. And so that's the way that we typically will do it. But usually it's just open-ended things like install new flooring, remodel bathroom. Who's been on the call and that's how they get their quote? Remodel bathroom. Well, what does that mean? What, or is there tile going in there? Is there plumbing fixture? I mean, I can show you a quote that is terrible if you want to see that one. I just had one the other day.
No, I think it makes sense because I mean, I've had I haven't done a big construction project. I've done the smaller ones and I'm getting ready to start to try to do a bigger one. So I was just trying to discern how different it would be from some of the kind of lipstick on the pig ones that I do, like more tearing out the guts. Cause I don't know that I would know everything about like, you know, if you need to put in new HVAC, like would you just write install new furnace and AC, or, you know, would you, I don't know, like I don't know all the internal bits that I would need to outline on that kind of thing.
Okay, I'm going to pull up something too for this. You guys, this is being loaded into your, it's maybe already there. But this is something that I like to use too. And I kind of updated it for everybody, the scope of work checklist. Yeah, because you don't want just new HVAC, because that's the quote that we don't want. Because new HVAC, well, what does that mean? And so I always ask myself the question, well, what does that mean? Well, new HVAC. If it's a new furnace, I want them on their quote saying, install a new gas furnace or a new electric furnace, whatever they're putting in. If I need all new ducting, it should reference all new ducting throughout the project. If it needs gas piping, those should all be separate line items or in one line item with everything out there. New furnace or new HVAC, that's way too open. That's what we want to stay away from. Does that make sense? And then
Yeah, that's helpful.
You guys, and so this is in here. I had used it a couple times and I didn't like the results, so I tweaked it, and that's why there's a little bit of a delay. So you guys, this should be in there. I think Amanda said she put it in today. But so here is, we created the scope of work checklist for you guys, an updated version. So in here, it gets a little bit more granular, so you can mark that out when you give it to the contractor. And so, for example, like if you get down to plumbing, new plumbing for entire home. So that's going to be new PEX plumbing throughout. Install sinks. Like their quote could be plumbing for entire home, 20 grand. And that's all it says. You guys, that will be common in estimates that you see. So we like to make sure, if let's say the estimate comes in that way, and that's who we're working with. He's not good at making bids. We have them sign this too, and it attaches, so it references everything that's included inside of that plumbing amount. Or sometimes we'll just throw their numbers on a form like this and make them sign that and use that as the estimate instead of what they're submitting to us. And so this breaks it down by new plumbing for the entire home, sinks, new kitchen sink, new toilet, new bathtub, shower pans, kitchen faucets, new bathroom faucet, hot water tank, P-traps, new shower tubs, valves, new supply lines, new shower surrounds. You guys, they should be that detailed out with what's included inside their plumbing scope of work. And on your budget sheet, it's broken down kind of the same way. For, electrical, broken down the same way. HVAC, it would be new furnace, new venting for kitchen hood, new venting for bathroom fans, gas piping for appliances, new fire insert, new boiler, thermostat, heat registers. Oh, wow. Ducting got removed from here. When I was messing with that green stuff. Put that in right now. Don't download you guys use the one that's going in right after this. But Alicia, what this will do is it'll kind of give you that hit list through each section for the line item. And then that way you can always ask that question of going, hey, in your HVAC, is all this included?
Yeah, this is helpful. I remember you going over this one. I don't think I could ever figure out where it was. So
I made it way better. I didn't like the results of that one. So I just was like, you guys, sometimes when I go over things, I want to make sure my team, I actually send it through my teams to see how it's well received. And if it's not well received, I don't post it because I want to kind of fix it a little bit. So now we've used this a couple times. Actually, you guys, this has been working really well for us now too, is, on some contractors, what we've realized, you guys, construction, you have to package your deal up to who you're talking to. And if we go meet with our more affordable contractors, sometimes we give them that full budget sheet with everything broken down and they just nickel and dime the small things and they're not giving us credit for the other. And they were getting, it was more like they saw our numbers and it was just a way to negotiate that number just because they wanted to try to negotiate. It was causing a lot of back and forth. So now what I'm doing with my more affordable guys is we just give this to them and then we give them the pictures of the comps and a number. And then we negotiate and we're actually saving about 5% off our budgets by just going more basic with them than giving them the logical breakdown. The logical breakdown I give to my more advanced contractors that do look at install rates. And so like our rule of thumb is if a contractor's walking through the project with us and they're not measuring windows, they're not measuring floors, they're not counting doors, they're ballparking the whole thing anyways. We go with this form. If it's a more qualified contractor that is measuring things, we give them our other budget sheet with everything broken down so it can be a much more logical debate. So you guys, this is on there. It's kind of broken down. I definitely broke it down a lot more than when we looked at last. Door handles, closets, it's all kind of broken in, and then you guys can add in whatever additional information because there's always extra things to do at a house that may be not common, and then you can add it in from there. But it's a good checklist for you guys to be using just to go through your house. As you're walking through a house, go through that checklist. Should I be looking at that? What do the comps have? Am I missing things? Should that be in the contractor's quote? We want to catch that before you hire them. Nicole.
Sorry, bad timing, just trying to get the kid out the door with dad. I had two questions, and I've of course already forgotten the first one. It did have something to do with contractors. You know what? Come back to me. I just lost it. Sorry.
No worries. Okay, you guys, I know these calls go long with questions, so I know we're not out of questions. Who's having stuff on their issues with finding contractors, budgeting, or going through a job site right now? Pretty.
Hey James. Yeah, I had a few questions from last time also, and how do you set allowances when you're new? Like that is one of the questions I was thinking about while going through the modules, because like I don't know exactly how much the materials cost, and how do you do that when you're new?
Okay, so in the construction course, I talk about how to kind of get pricing out of vendors. And the first thing we want to do is, besides finding out the pricing, is we want to find out what kind of materials you need to install in your market. And so the best thing you guys can do when you're a newer investor, now you guys, I've done so many houses, I've trained my eye to where I can go through comps and go, those are laminate floors, those are pre-finished floors, those are on-site. Or I can look at that tile and go, that's marble or that's ceramic, just by looking at some patterns. That's going to take a minute. So the best thing that you can do, or like pretty like what I did when I started flipping a house in Newport Beach, when I was selling it for $8.5 million, I had never done a house at that price point before. And what I had to go do was take a tour and walk through some homes. And so what I want you to do, like what target price point are you looking to flip in your market?
Like purchase price between 350 and 450.
Okay, which means they're going to be selling them for about like 600 to 700,000.
Yeah.
And so what I want you to do is grab a couple different active and pending homes that, have you already found the broker on your team? Are you interviewing people for that spot right now?
Yeah, I'm talking to people. I haven't found the right person yet.
Okay, well, one of the indicators of finding the right person will be saying, hey, I need you, can you pull me an active and a pending flipped home in this price point in this area? They're going to be able to go on the MLS and find that.
Mhm.
Then schedule a tour. I want you to walk through those homes and look at the floors, feel them, right? So like when I went to the Newport Beach houses, I was looking at the appliances. I was like literally opening the cabinet drawers and going, oh, these are solid wood inside, not plywood. Or I was like, oh, they have organizers. Whereas I'm walking through, I'm going, oh, they have audio visual things. They have speakers in every room. I was feeling the doors. Are they solid wood thick doors or are they hollow? And I want you to take notes of, hey, when I walked through, the flooring was laminate floor and kitchen, living, dining, carpet, and the rest. The doors were hollow and they were 6-panel or they were 1-panel, because that's going to make a difference in the pricing. And so I want you to go through and kind of make a list of what you saw, and then we can work backwards on how to establish that allowance list from there. Because from there, a lot of it's just, you guys, Google is your friend on a lot of different market research for pricing. Doors. You guys, Home Depot typically is going to be one of the cheaper door suppliers for standard doors. We can find them about 10% cheaper through other suppliers. But if a door is $200 at Home Depot, and let's say we can get it for $180, it's not going to make or break my budget, but I can start with just setting the allowances with Home Depot, and then we beat the pricing backwards that way. And, you know, a lot of what I'll do too, like, let's say everything's laminate in your area. I'll just put right in Google and go like, hey, if it's in my area, I'd be like, hey, Seattle, Washington, laminate floors clearance. And that's going to pull me a bunch of stuff on sale, which is going to tell me the range of that laminate floor pricing. And then based on what I'm seeing, I can go, okay, well, I'm seeing stuff from $1.50 to $2.50 that looks pretty good. I'm going to put in my allowance at $2 to start. And so we can work it backwards. But the first thing is take a tour of these properties and feel the material.
Okay.
The appliances, the doors, you know, the tile, what do they have in them? The toilet, like, just go through each room and just kind of notate what's there.
Okay. So it has to be within these price range of properties, that like whatever matches the ARV of the properties that I am looking to buy.
Yes, because that's in your area. That's going to tell you your buyer's expectations.
Okay.
And, you know, that's really, really important, you guys. Like, the floors that I put in Newport Beach, I've never put in any home in Seattle because it was just the price point. The funny thing is, I paid less money for those floors in California than I paid in Seattle because I was just digging for deals on it. And I kept calling, kept talking to people, and then I found this magical guy that comes to your house in a van, and turns out he has a direct supply, and I was able to pick up. And then I gave all my team shit in Seattle too. I'm like, you guys, we couldn't find this. They're 8-inch white oak floors. Now, when I was walking through these houses, they were 3/4-inch, 8-inch white oak floors, which I don't typically put in homes. But by walking the houses, I could see the width of them, I could see the grade of them, and I could feel them. That's like a difference of $2 to $3 a square foot on a flooring sometimes. But if I would have put the wrong flooring in the house in Newport, there's no way I would have sold it for the price I would have sold it for, because they expect a certain quality. And so, yes, I want you to look at the homes, because that sets the expectation in your market of what buyers expect in that price point.
That sounds good. I'll go through that first. And then usually is it better to order materials yourself, or is it better that the contractor just handles everything?
So you guys, there's two kind of rules of thought behind that. We don't order the materials ourselves unless it's kind of like some specialty lights or something for the house. You can do it and probably save a little bit of money, but what I found is the waste from the team and things getting moved around. We used to order like flooring in like 10,000 square foot increments, and then things would get left behind. They weren't picked up right, and then the waste would never keep my savings. And so what we like to do is have the spec selected first, then give it to the contractor and make them go get it. And it also gives the contractor an option to find it even cheaper. And if they can find it cheaper, I let them keep the difference, because I just want this floor in there for this price. And it gives the contractor a little flexibility. The benefit for buying the materials yourself is, you guys, is you don't get so far advanced into the contractor. Because if the contractor is including all the materials, they're going to be getting payments typically on a draw schedule, and they're going to be getting 10% down to get started, then maybe a 20% progress payment. And so you're advancing them money. You guys, what we do as flippers is we are advancing the money to the contractors as they do the work. And that's why we don't want to get too far ahead. If we pull the materials off, we're advancing them less money. And so by buying the materials yourself, it does keep it safer, but it can slow your project down. It can cause delays and you can have some waste. So there can be a little bit of, delay that way. Now, if I was doing just 1 to 2 houses at a time, I'd probably be buying a lot more materials myself and just shipping them to site. Like I did a lot of that in Newport Beach because the quotes I was getting were absurd. I was like, I'm going to buy the materials and ship them there. I think my general quoted me $12 a foot for those floors. And I paid $5. And so I was like, the material costs were so outrageous there. I had to be pretty thrifty. And so I bought most of the materials for that job site. Now I don't do that in Seattle because they can be a little bit more thriftier, and you guys, if the general calls me and goes, hey, you gave me the spec, it's this floor. Can I put this in instead? And it looks almost the same. I'm happy with it. I let them put that in because if they can make a little extra money, I'm fine with it because it's just good for them. And so we're a little bit less. It just gives the contract a little flexibility.
Okay. Yeah, the thing is, by the way, thank you for your little tip last time. I actually got some contractors to talk to me because of that.
Oh, did you? Good.
Yeah, but most of them actually were unlicensed contractors. They were working on somebody else's flips, so I got like referrals for them, but they're all unlicensed. And they were like, "Oh, but you can pull permit yourself as a homeowner." So I was like, but is there any disadvantage to doing that?
Okay, guys. What I should say is you should always hire a licensed bonding contractor. And I do believe that for sure. Electrical, plumbing, HVAC, you got to be licensed for mechanicals. Technically, everyone needs to be licensed, but I don't always do that. Like my painter, one of my painters works for a big track home company. He's a great painter. He does our houses on the weekends, and because he just likes working and he likes making money. Now, he's not really licensed to do it, but I feel comfortable with him doing it. There's always a time and a place for unlicensed and licensed. And so technically they should always be licensed. If it's a trade like a painter, carpet guy putting in door handles and, or doing drywall work, I don't typically always have them licensed. I would say by chance, most always are, but there's always a time and place for that. And so, keep those guys on the side for certain things, especially rental properties, guys. Those are great for rental properties. But then, don't have them do the mechanicals because, if something goes wrong after the fact, electrical, plumbing, and they're unlicensed, that's where you have a lot of liability.
These are actually GCs that I talked to that are not, because in Colorado, the licensing is weird. Like every county has its own licensing. It's not like statewide license. So they were like, oh, we can't like go through every county and get a license. So they were like, we have all the mechanicals, like if it's a HVAC guy, electrical, they have all those people as licensed, but they themselves are not licensed.
And I don't have, as long as their trades for those are licensed, I wouldn't, because really what they're acting is they're really not a general contractor, they're a project manager at that point to me. And I'm okay if I treat them that way too. And so what I'd like to do though, in that scenario is have them bid it and go, hey, is it okay if I pay that sub direct and pay you the difference just to see if that works for them? Because I want to make sure the paper trail's right.
Okay.
But yeah, so some states are really tough to get your general contracting license and some are not. Arizona, really hard from what I understand by looking into it. Colorado, I've heard the same thing. Washington, complete joke. You send in a piece of paper and now you're a general contractor. And so I would say, yes, you could hire them, but you might want to have an attorney draw up like a consulting agreement for you though, that still keeps them on the hook. Because if you're hiring them as a general contractor, but they're not licensed and bonded, there's not a whole lot you can go after at that point. But as a consultant, you could go after them a little bit differently.
Yeah. So instead of using the construction contract, like use a different contract.
You could use that one, just have them modify it to consulting rather than general contracting.
Okay. Okay. I'll talk to them about it. And then, the draw schedule, I talked to some hard money lenders. Basically, they said when the work is done, then you get the draw schedule. So, like the first 10% or whatever they ask for, how would you pay for that? Like,
Okay, yeah. So there's definitely watch the hard money financing section of Project Flip too, because you guys, there's different types of lenders out there. Some hard money lenders will advance you money, like interest funding. We're a different type of hard money lender. When our client closes, we advance the first 10% to them on closing. Now we cost more. We're 12% and 2 points, whereas the other guys are maybe they're 10% and 1 point. And then they want to see you cut the check and they want to see the work done, they're reimbursed. And so the thing is that you're going to want to do on that is you have to have a little bit of a buffer going forward. So the advantage of using that kind of lenders, their down payments can sometimes be less. And so when I would be looking at a deal, you always want to have like an extra 10% in liquidity that you can advance out and then be reimbursed. You know, so if your project's $100,000, make sure that you have an extra 10,000 that you can always float in the beginning. And then one thing I want you to do is as you talk to those hard money lenders is make sure that you understand their draw schedule and how frequently you can request that, because you get some lenders will give you a draw once a week. You can request one and go through it. They're going to charge you for it, but they'll actually do that. Some will say, nope, we only do it at 30%, 60%, 90 in the last 10. That means you're going to have to advance your funds out a lot more on those ones. And so when you're talking to those lenders, ask how frequently you can ask for draws and then what that process is. And it's important, you guys, this is actually a great way for you guys to get your contractor to work faster. If they don't know that you're in charge of the draw and they think it's another third party like a bank, they act differently. They're like, no, I can't get the money until you get here. So we're on the same team, the same page. Get here, and then the lender will pay you. I'm just doing what the lender tells me. And so you can use that draw schedule as leverage to get them to do the work. And then your hard money draw schedule, if your lender's giving it to you, use that as the draw schedule on your construction contract. But you're going to have to give them a down payment because none of our affordable contractor guys, if a contractor can come out of pocket with the money, that means they're probably not the people for us to work, because they're a little more legitimate. They have more cash. They typically won't work for the pricing that we're looking for.
yeah, exactly. If they are bringing the materials, they always ask for not just 10%. Actually, they usually ask for even more than that.
Donnie says, I'm working on that, guys. I'm working on some sort of nationwide price. It's just complex. Because if you can get that, I'll use it in Oklahoma and California. You guys, another thing that you can do too, right? For these, when you're having these draw issues and advance issues, that's a good time to talk to some of the private money lenders in our group. Say, hey, like, James, here's the deal. I'm looking not for the whole down payment. I just need $15,000 second just to help float me through. That's where a private money investor can come really handy, right? Like if, let's say Purdy has $100,000 construction project, she needs $10,000 or $15,000 down to get going. She may have put in $100,000 to get the project funded with the lender, but I could do a second for $20,000 for her that floats her through that time. And then once the project's all the way complete, she can then pay off my second loan because it's still inside the construction draw. And then she pays interest for this small little loan for the duration of the construction. And so sometimes you guys on those, people might charge you a lot. They might even charge you 15, 18%, but it's on $20,000. It doesn't really affect your deal that much. And then the goal is pay it off as soon as you're done with your construction. It's just a little floater money. And it's a riskier loan. It's harder to get those loans, but if you're paying a good interest on a small amount, it doesn't affect your profitability that much, and it keeps you liquid. And then once that project's done, your final check, you just pay that thing off.
That's a good tip. And then last question. This is a little hard,
No,
but
I like it. You're coming in with a list of questions. It's perfect.
yeah, so I was talking to Tyler actually last week, and he said they really got crushed on their flipping projects last year. Like everything that they did, 4 out of 5 projects were like very bad. So
From Tyler on your group?
yeah, I mean Tyler Madden.
Oh, yes, in Denver.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Tyler's a very talented construction guy too.
yeah. So that did scare me a little bit. So I wanted to ask you if you have any tips on mitigating some of those risks that, like, I think he talked to you about those too, because he was saying he mentioned that to you last year.
Yeah, and you guys, Tyler's a very talented construction guy. He's came on our calls, knows a lot about construction. I think the world of him. He's a great dude. Talented contractor, started flipping some houses in a good market that goes well. But you guys, I think that was all about underwriting. And also he put, so he might have misjudged from what I understand. Like he bought some, you got to know what you're good at. Tyler's really good at building a quality product.
Yes.
But then he was buying some homes in good areas with negative impacts. And so he would make these houses just completely amazing, but they had that negative impact. And so in theory, he should have spent a lot less on that house and made it less nice and spent less on the materials, controlled his costs more, and he probably would have been profitable from what I looked at with him. You guys, Tyler's not in our group, but he comes speaks every once in a while. You have to, that comes down to checking the comps and what I was talking about. We want to create that scope of work for what is expected in that price point. I think part of maybe one of his issues was he's such a great luxury builder that he was building luxury and in markets he shouldn't have done it in.
Yeah, he was saying he was actually spending like 25 grand extra on these flips just to because he thought that that's how they'll be able to sell it, because the market changed and they thought that that's how they'll be able to sell it, but it still didn't sell at that price. It was selling for less, even though they put more money into it.
Yes, and I think the key to that statement is he thought. You guys, our gut is not what we use in these projects. Our gut's going to help us guide us on some things. And, and sometimes I do gut checks things because I've sold a lot of houses. I'm going, no, in this neighborhood, I know this can work. But we have to use data. And you guys, if the comp you have has crappy floors and appliances that you don't like, but that's where buyers are okay buying, you need to put that stuff in. And these are not our houses. We want to use the data. And I see this happen all the time. Well, I just spent, I thought that I spent $1,000 more on my appliances. I spent an extra $500 on my mirrors. I spent an extra dollar a square foot on my flooring because it was so much nicer, but you get that erodes our profit. And that's why we have to stay very disciplined on what are the comps, copy the comps, and then implement it. The only way I think it works is if you lean into something is when you're in that luxury market. Because, buyers in SoCal, they will pay a freakish amount for a really well done home. And the only way I had to get comfortable with that, because I look at homes, I'm like, this doesn't pencil, and then people would sell them for huge money. And I had to really go, okay, well, the demographic down here is they're people with a lot of money. They don't want to do one thing on the house and they want it to be turnkey. Even when we staged the property, I staged my property through an expensive stager, but it's because he would sell them all the furniture with it. And it was real furniture. And the buyer who bought it bought all the furniture because it was a secondary home for him. And so I had to spend more money in those spots, but it's about kind of understanding that demographic, but always use the data. Don't use your gut.
Okay. I guess walking through these active and pending properties will help with that.
Yes, it will be. And there's a lot of those in Denver. I do know that. When you can get through the snow, I was stuck in a car for 6 hours on the pass yesterday. We went out to Breckenridge to ski, which was awesome. Snow pounded, but then we're that freeway is no joke coming off that
Yeah.
pass.
I-70.
I-70, we were stuck there, it was shut down. We turned around, drove back, missed both our flights. I think we got into Denver at like 1 a.m. in a 7-hour car ride.
Yep, that can do that.
Yep. But if you're in Colorado, guys, thinking the snow's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was all the question.
You're welcome. And you know what, Purdy, there's a lot of good brokers down in Denver,
Mhm.
especially in the bigger go to some of the bigger pockets meetups that they have in Denver.
Yeah.
They will be there. I can promise you that.
Okay. Yeah, the few that I talked to, they were like, "Oh, we don't do this. Like, we can't give you comps and stuff with this. We can just send you properties." I'm like, "No, I don't want to do that."
Oh, cross them out. You guys, if someone says that, not your person.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I'll find through bigger pockets. Thank you.
I remembered my questions, if it's helpful, James.
Nicole, yep, you're on deck. And then Alex, then
Okay.
Donnie. And actually, hold on one sec. Let me just look through the chat real quick. Sometimes love me. Okay. Let's go. Okay. There. Nicole.
So my first one was around, the detailed scope from the contractor in terms of what you're signing. Let's say what they send you isn't that detailed. Would you be comfortable having them sign, say, your detailed version that's just like, cool, like we're good with this, but I'm also just gonna have you sign this other one that is like my detailed version or modify it. So, like, I guess how would you kind of do that if there isn't including all that detail, but they're like, yeah, no, we're good with the amount of detail you've put together.
Oh, like if they don't want to send your scope of work?
No, like if they're the one they're sending you that they're getting you to sign is just not very detailed. Like, how do you kind of, but they'll look at yours and they're like, that's all, yeah, that's all included. Like, would you just kind of have them countersign yours as well? Or would you really push back and say, no, you just need to modify your scope of work to include all this? Like, how would you make sure that that level of detail does get included if they're just saying, because obviously the verbal doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, no, that's a good, yeah, so what I do, sorry, I'm just plugging in my laptop as we're doing this. One sec. Yeah, because you guys with my more affordable guys, their quotes are terrible.
Right,
Absolutely
exactly.
terrible. And no matter how much crap is, we have them sign our scope of work and have them reference in our construction contract at reference that all this is going to be included.
Sorry, James, I think you broke up for a good minute there. And I don't know if it's me, but I don't even see your video
No,
anymore.
he broke up. Yeah.
Yeah, so we didn't actually hear what you said.
Oh, did it come off? Hold on one sec.
There
Okay,
you
can you hear
go.
me now?
You're good
Yeah.
now. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so I have them. Sorry, I'm just making sure my laptop's charging right now, guys. Okay, that's the issue. Hold on one sec, guys. My charger is not working. That's why it's dying.
No, no.
No, it's all right. I got backup. Just hang on. One sec, guys. It's not juicing up.
Does anybody else do what I do on these calls and make dinner at the same time? That's why my video is always off.
My video should be off, but I just eat.
I usually do the commute at this point.
Oof, that commute. So glad I work from home and don't have to do that anymore.
I'm at the gym.
Ooh, nice.
Attaboy.
Did we lose him again?
He just went to go get his charger.
We
Uh.
just, let's see, making sure this one works. There we go. That works now. I can just spry it out. Okay, you guys can see me, right? Hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so Nicole, what I do is we have them sign the scope of work, our estimated budget, if we have that too. And then in the construction contract, we reference it as exhibits, saying construction, everything's included with scope of work, contractor bid, and construction budget. And so that ties it all together. We actually designed that construction contract that way on purpose. So we'll wrap it all together to make it legally binding.
Okay, got it. That
But
makes
always
sense.
have them sign and date it as well.
Okay.
Oh, and then one other thing I like to do too is under their signature, I have them write all items on scope of work are included in estimate. You get the more you verify it, the better.
Right.
And so, because that is the issue, guys. They're not going to give us. Typically, if your bid's really broken down, they're expensive.
Right. You mean like if they're giving you a broken down bid? If they're
Yeah.
the ones, yeah. Okay. As opposed to if you're putting it together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
so that's like a struggle I'm having right now in terms of Kiara and I are having in terms of like choosing a contractor. Like we have one who's come back with definitely the cheapest bid. And I'm like, okay, I know cheapest isn't always the best. I did go off one of his job sites. It's clean work. It looks good. They did it fairly quickly, given some like permit issues they ran into where they were doing it unpermitted, and then their neighbor called and complained. It wasn't like as high, like it wasn't as it was a buy and hold Airbnb, so the finishes weren't as high end as I want for this project. But certainly the work itself looked clean. The job site looked clean. They're going to send us a few other listings of theirs to take a look at. But my concern is exactly that. So that's okay. So that's helpful. That answers that question around us building a really detailed scope for them and saying, okay, I need you to sign all of this. All of this is included in what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Also, when she says cheapest, it's like the cheapest one is 160 and the other ones we're getting are like 250, 260. So it's a bit of a gap.
Whoa.
No. It's not 160 with finishes though, right? The materials allowance is not included in the 160.
Okay, but
right?
it is included in the 250 you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so it could come out to 200 versus 250.
How many square feet is that, you guys?
2,600. So it's 220 versus 250, 260.
Okay, and that's also because you are permitting a DADU too, right?
No, we're not.
Nope, that was the other deal. We scratched that one.
Yeah.
I would get some more quotes. That seems very high to me.
Well, we do have cast iron pipes that we need to replace. We need to do a new roof.
Oh, okay. I thought you said electrical was that high.
No, the GC quote.
Okay, I was like, you guys, I think we're starting off on the wrong foot here.
No. The full GC quote for everything.
Okay.
James, why did you
Not
doubt us
electrical.
like that?
I just heard electrical and I heard 250 grand. I was like, oh, guys, let's put time out real quick.
No, the full quote. So we're looking at like 220 versus say 250, 260.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
No, and you guys, that's about right? That's about 10-15% less than the detail guys. And again, it's not that the lack of detail isn't in there, but as for us, if I'm going to save money by using this contractor, I got to use a little bit more work and I got to make it more clarity. And so like having those allowances and everything, having them sign it, that will help a lot in that project.
Cool. And then the other question I had in terms of like your WIP, your work in progress, because so something that I do for bookkeeping is because I don't want to pay for a bookkeeper, and even though my husband is a freaking CPA, he hates doing that shit. I actually just do my own bookkeeping, and the way that I do it is I just pull my credit card statements every month and my bank statements, and I put them in ChatGPT, and I'm like, here's the categories, put everything in there, call out anything you weren't able to put in, and I just kind of do it that way. So what exactly is in your WIP that's different than your bookkeeping, or how are those two things different?
I could show you guys right now. You want to see the WIP?
Yeah.
And I think you're doing the same thing, and that's okay. Let me grab one up. So I'll show you guys both real quick. So we have a whip, and that's going to give me all costs spent to date because I want to just audit and go like, part of it, you guys, is at some point when you do volume, sometimes your project managers or somebody can send an invoice in twice, and people cut checks twice. And that's not good. And that will happen when we were running a couple hundred projects at a time. That would be a constant issue I had to check for. Because it was just a lot going on. And the other thing is when I see cuts, if I see an HVAC check cut for, let me grab, it allows me to spot check the estimates a little bit too, because I'm going, hey, why is my HVAC guy paid 30 grand and my budget was 25? Or why is my HVAC guy been paid 20 and my budget was 25? Okay, here we go. Sorry, guys. I was just pulling up a whip let me share it. And so it allows me to spot check it really quick, especially when you have multiple projects going on. But Nicole, what you're doing is the same thing. It's just, you're just having it not done by an accountant because ours is done in QuickBooks. So you guys, here's a whip for you. And then we also have P&Ls. So in our whip, okay, so this tells me every check that was cut, who was cut to, the amount that was cut, and whether, like right here, this is a credit card transactions with Lowe's.
Right.
I can spot check that too. Be like, hey, why did we spend at the paint store $999 when I hired a painter to paint the whole house out? The reason we spent $999 is because I wanted a premium paint on there. And so it allows me to go through what is every check been cut through this product. So it's no different than what you're talking about. Who was cut to, how much it was when that check was cut. And this
So
is
your whip is just all your raw transactions, basically.
these are all the raw transactions.
Okay.
And so this allows me to go through, but this also then tells me every cost to date on this project.
Yep.
So you guys, I can look at this project real quick. Here's all my interest payments to interest funding that are in here. Here is all my costs for interest. Here was all my costs on the project for the origination fee. I paid $28,000 in points. I had $750 in loan docs. I had a construction admin fee, a reconveyance fee, and my total cost to date is 1.948 million on this project, minus 100 grand credit that we got on the purchase. And so our cost to date is 1.847870. Now we are selling this project for 2.250 and we're pending on it in closing. And so the reason I want to check this all the time, this is.
And how are you balancing that against the budget you had for that particular area? So for example, because sometimes there's areas in which you're going to have multiple transactions going out. I'm just trying to think of tile or I don't know, certain finishes. How are you kind of, because the whip it's obviously it's all your raw transactions, but there's a lot of it's scanning that, adding all those different line items. It's really helpful for me to see obviously where we're at in terms of total spend, but sometimes it's hard to get a handle on, okay, what percentage of our budget, where are we actually over currently versus where we underspent currently in terms of tracking to the materials allowances we had set.
Okay, so this one here is a little bit more because we generaled this whole one on this, but here, this would be, so for example, floor and decor on this one. And again, we did general everything on this, but floor and decor, we can go through and they can organize everything from, we're missing some tile here. Okay, so paint right here. Let's just make it simple. We can add up all these items and then I can have my accountant, if I want to go, hey, give me the numbers for everything that's associated with Sherwin-Williams. But for here.
Yeah, I guess my question was, because I could do that too on my end. I was wondering, do you kind of keep a line of sight on that specifically around like what you spent for each section or what you budgeted for certain allowances? Or do you kind of look at it more holistically, like I'm saying, and then if you want to go double check, you kind of do that manual analysis?
So I'll show you how we double check it. So we have our assistants. So we have, and that's what a bookkeeper's great for too, is go, hey, I want you to compile everything from Sherwin-Williams. I just grabbed my 2 painters on there. It was Felipe and Lum Painting. Felipe is my cheap guy that I got from on site, and then Lum Painting is my premium guy because he painted all our cabinets and gave us more of a premium finish on this house because it's more expensive. Now on our budget, pull this up, is on your guys' budget tracking sheet. You can have that done from your bookkeeper, pull that, go, hey, here's all my paint costs. And then you can input it into your budget sheet on this, and it will show you a variance. Sorry, I'm trying to.
James, I don't think we see anything if we're supposed to be seeing something.
I'm almost, it's waiting for it to load. There we go. I'm gonna pull up this budget. Sorry guys, Monday.com. This is part of the reason I'm going off of it. It just froze. So give me 1 sec.
Yeah, because like the bookkeeping and the whip, I do both of those to kind of track where we are month by month. But it doesn't necessarily, like, unless I have an inclination that we're going over in one specific area and I go do that quick check in the raw transactions, you aren't necessarily always seeing that perhaps you maybe have gone over on your counter and backsplash budget. If you and your tile, like if you source from multiple places or kind of piece that together, I guess I'm trying to think of like a good example of like maybe tile is a good example where you set a certain tile budget and you have multiple bathrooms and you kind of have gone over that allowance.
Well, you're not allowed to when you're selecting, Nicole. That or you got to look at the comps. But so let me show you. Sorry, this thing's just loading, guys. It's taking just a second. So specific example. All right.
Also, that line image cracks me up because I have a huge.
That was you, right?
What?
With that the yellow line that someone drew on there?
No, the line that one time?
No, I saw some yellow lines go on our screen when we were talking.
No, it wasn't me.
Okay, so here we go, guys. Let me pull this up. Okay. Sorry, guys, Monday.com's acting up. 1 sec.
That is Raul, James, while you're loading that up. What I typically do in this is I add a category and match it to the category for my budget against every spend. And then it's a simple pivot table. If you're using a spreadsheet, now give me my total for the same category for how much I've spent, and I compare that with my budget, and that gives me kind of quick summary of whether I'm tracking or
I
not.
like that idea. So do you do the categories by like room or by like
No, I
the categories?
use the same category that I use in my budget. And in
Okay.
case I need to further categorize, I typically don't go by room level, but paint or plumbing or whatever. So just high level categories and
Got it.
expense is for certain category.
Okay.
Yeah, so like Nicole, here's sorry, this took me a second to pull up. So here's the budget for that same house. And in you guys in this budget sheet that you guys have access to, it will pull over to a budget tracking sheet right here. So as I go through, I input it all, it gives me an output. And you could use it as simple as this too and double check against this, but it pulls over to something called a budget tracking. Now on paint, when I go over to my actual whip and they give me I can see my paint cost through here here's all my paint cost in here. Plus the 7,100. So I total this up. And I would have my accountants do this. Or we can go, we'll go. Total. All right, so there's 12,079 that I spent on paint for this house.
By the way, pro tip, on the bottom right, if you're just highlighted like that, it actually shows you the sum. So you don't even need to do the sum function.
Yeah, there you go. You know, I've never noticed that actually. But so then over here, like, so what we do, and then as we get estimates too, I have my assistant will, you know, so we have quotes from 3 different painters, and let's say it's all broken up and we can't quite, like, well, some's exterior paint, some's cost of paint, some's not, because of just how we ran the project. What I do know is in my actual cost here, I can run this at a total of, I think that was 12,000. What was that number? 12,000. It's like 12,500, right? So this tells me right here as they load in. So if you do that weekly, right, you get your estimate back for all your paint, you throw it in here. This tells me I'm 5,500 bucks under budget on my paint right now.
Yeah.
And then it's as simple as too, like, this is all broken out from the budget sheet, but you can just take all your line items, and then as you get your quotes, just input them in on the actual cost.
Okay.
And the reason I want to be able to do it that way with my team is I can pull that and go, hey, are we under budget or over right now?
Right. Okay.
How are we pacing?
Right.
And so what I would do, you could probably have Chat GTP, and I'm actually meeting with some AI specialists to kind of look at this too, and go, okay, here's my budget for paint, right? Here's my budgets. Anybody that with this entity, they got paid this, pull over, put into that Excel next to it.
Well, that's what I do. I essentially go, hey, anything from Amazon just categorized to like finishing materials, or I don't know, that's about it as a okay example, but or for example, payments to a certain individual, you know, categorized as this contractor payment, and it kind of just does that for any future payments that I put in there for all my bank statements, all the credit card statements, and it kind of just does the bookkeeping for me.
Yeah, that's
And then
and so what I would do is on your original quote though, take your main line items and at least put that on an Excel spreadsheet.
yeah,
You know, paint,
Okay.
electrical, plumbing, roofing, paint. And then that way you're setting at least with your baseline without all the extra thing in it. It's just like, okay, here's my main line items. Like in the budget, again, how it's kind of pulled out this way. Again, this is the simpler way to do it would be to make it set up like this. Gosh, this happened. Is like the summary here. This tells me what I'm spending on what on a high level. So if it's all set up this way, paint 20,750, framing 7,500. As you're getting those estimates, have it pull over and have it broken down next to it. But this gets it, you know, set up your budget initially like this with just the major line items. And these on this budget are usually going to be your all-encompassing one. They're going to be grouped together.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. Last question is around how ultimately, like, if you know you've got a few contractor bids back and you have gotten to the point where you feel like you're doing an apples to apples comparison, like they're all signing off on, you know, a specific scope. You know, you've walked a couple of their projects. How do you kind of ultimately end up making a decision? Like, how do you feel really comfortable making that decision on which one to go with?
So they're the same apples to apples.
Let's just say, yeah, for like, we're not at that stage yet where they're apples to apples yet. We're going to get there because we haven't been able to have them all walk the job site, which, like, as you heard from Kiara. And I'd really like to make sure they all walk it so that there's no like well, now that we're here, we see it this way or that way. But yeah, if we were to get them to an apples to apples situation, how do you kind of feel confident in who you're choosing?
That one's more gut check. I mean, I'll look at history, and then it's really how I'm vibing with the person. The person that's talking a lot and like I feel like they're trying to sell me something, it's gonna go to 2. But it's really just based on, okay, how well am I vibing with the person? How well are they communicating too? If one guy maybe takes 2 hours to get back to me, one guy takes 30 minutes, but they're apples to apples, I might go with the 30-minute guy.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
If
Yep.
one is like a fixed bid versus others have change orders, like does that influence your decision?
Yes, you guys, I like to set all my on a fixed bid. Now, a change order is a
Yeah.
change order. That's a change in scope of work or something we missed. But if it's kind of like this floating bid up front, I want to go with the guy that can be fixed. If he can't give me a fixed number for the stuff that we're going over, that's a concern of mine. Because if I'm rewiring the whole house, I'm rewiring the whole house. Why do you gotta give me a bid? There's a square footage, there's outlets, you can count all that out. And so I like the fixed bid guys. I would not do time and materials. Or if they're talking about change orders up front, that's a red flag for me, for sure.
No, we always like to ask about change orders and how they handle them.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah.
good though. And
Yeah.
then, but you get the one thing is, I wouldn't say, hey, how do you handle them? It will say, hey, when a change order comes up, this is how we expect it to be handled.
Okay.
And it's right there in that construction contract. It's written out. Like it needs to be done in writing. It needs to be approved by us, and it needs to be broken down.
Got it. Okay.
Uh,
Actually, on that note, one more question. Like, I guess when we're thinking through some of the really nitty-gritty details in terms of like, we tried to put a really detailed scope of work. Like we even got down to like how many can lights but like something we haven't done actually is definitely we haven't gone detail on like that HVAC piece. We certainly haven't talked about like how many outlets we want to do in terms of the rewire. We just kind of said to meet, modern kind of standards in terms of how many outlets we need. Are you going through and you're counting out like exactly how many outlets there need to be where in
no,
terms of
I
how
just
detailed
say
you're getting?
new outlets per code. 'Cause
That's
that
what I,
will-
yeah, okay, that's what I wrote.
And then I would say additional outlets that would not be like we did outlets inside the drawers in our bathrooms, in addition to for blow dryers and curling irons and all that stuff. And so I added in specialty things like at the makeup counter. I wanted pop-up outlets. Anything specialty I list out, but otherwise I just say per code.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I was just having a hard time thinking like what is specialty one is that we even added in things like toe kick lighting, shelf lighting.
Yep.
We're trying to think through like all of those little details, but sometimes it's just like you don't know what you don't know in terms of like missing things.
Yeah, and that you guys did cover on that per code. That's
Okay.
I always say per code, like plumbing,
Right.
just because if the outlets need to be a certain distance, they got to be a certain distance, or there needs to be a certain
Right.
amount of outlets in the island. I might not know that based on the island, the dimensions, all that, but they have to do per code, and that way at least covers me.
Yes. Yeah, even that, like we haven't necessarily fully thought that we put in like how we want to remodel the kitchen in terms of like waterfall island, which walls, but we didn't measure like this many feet of cabinets, like uppers and lowers.
Well, the cabinets will be, I would just try to draw it out for them is what we typically would do with our guys. Like, hey, this is what the kitchen's going to be dimension wise. And I would just
Yep.
budget for uppers and lowers. And then if you take them off the shelving, I'd rather have them bid it high and me reduce it down than the vice versa.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, question: in a scenario where your framing was done incorrectly, can the contractor be held liable for extending the timeline X amount of days and pay the per day penalty fee for the overages? Yes. If a contractor does their work incorrectly, whether it's framing, they're failing inspections because of their own reasons, if they got to rip out the flooring because they didn't set it correctly and it sets the project back, if it's their mistake, it does count against their days. We know if they framed it, but then the city's telling them they want to do a bunch of extra things, we won't charge them for that. But yes, for wrong work, we will charge for that. Seta asks, WIP stands for work in progress. Okay. Alex.
Hi. How can I get as builds if the seller can't provide any? Like, who can I get to draw that up, I guess?
Oh, there's a great app for that. Oh my gosh, what is the name of the app?
Is it, I don't know what Kubi Casa is. Is that what it's
Yes.
called? But I feel like
Yep.
I've heard.
Cubicasa.
Oh,
That's
Yeah,
what my team's
it's
been using.
fantastic.
heard.
Yeah.
Okay, Kubi Casa. Okay, I'll try that. I have another question too. When let's say you have two different plans, right? One will obviously increase the budget. How do you handle that? Because the hard money lender requires a scope of work and then the budget is set. So if you're trying to figure that out, like, do you ever change the plan significantly after closing? I'm trying to
Yes.
figure that out. If you're in between two plans.
I do. Definitely. It's especially on like our luxury items, we will switch the plan dramatically. Or you guys, when the market was rapidly appreciating too, we would switch the plan. Like that Lion House that I think some of you have seen. That was a bigger project of ours. My original plan was 500 grand. I spent $1 million and changed a bunch of things, but we sold it for $1.5 million more. And so it's hard with a hard money lender because they want to know what the plan is. That's what they're issuing their loan on. I would say the safest way is to give them the bigger plan and then do a modification of the plan to where they can hold back the money. It's hard for them to just issue more construction funds because what they're going to want to see is a new plan with a complete new budget. Then they're going to want to look at the values, but then they're going to refinance that loan because a hard money lender is not going to want to do a second for you. And so you will incur costs on that though, because when they refinance you, they are going to charge you some sort of origination fee on that. And so you could be looking at a half point to a point. And I would definitely ask that the lender you're working with say, hey, I'm in between two plans. I'm setting it up this way. If I decide to change it and we rebudget it out, you guys relook at that. What is that steps and what are my costs? One of the main costs will be the appraiser. They're going to send an appraiser out there again to look at your new scope of work and the new values because they got to document. The next thing is they're going to charge you an origination fee and maybe doc fees, and the fees that you paid on your original purchase will probably be charged again.
Okay. Another thing I was thinking, do you think this is another like second option besides doing that? If I have enough in like my HELOC, if I, to for the increased budget, maybe I can just use that if I decide to change the plan. The
Yeah,
interest is
no,
lower
that
on my
should be
HELOC.
fine because you're talking about if you decide to spend more.
Yeah, like let's say after close, I decide to go with the plan where it'll increase my budget a little bit, but I already went with the plan that's cheaper with the hard money lender to avoid everything that you just said.
Yeah, using your HELOC will be smart because your HELOC's going to be roughly what, 10%, 9 to 10% on
It's
costs.
actually lower. It's like 8.50 with interest only.
Okay, so that's
So
8.50. Your lender is probably going to be quoting you around what, 9.5 to 10.
yeah, 9.5. Yeah.
And so using that money over your lender's smarter anyways, because you're going to pick up that percentage, but then also because you're not going to pay all those origination fees, it's kind of a no-brainer to do it that way.
Yeah, okay. I was trying to have like a backup plan in case I did because I wish I could find out. I'll talk to you about this more tomorrow, but I wish I could figure out if I can go with the second plan, but I had almost the same situation as Nicole. We were able to get in being kind and sweet talking, but I don't think I'll be able to get back in to get like a pool contract there. So I just wanted to have a backup in case I do want to go with the adding a
Okay,
pool.
because yours is an occupied off-market deal, right?
It is occupied, yeah.
And it's off-market,
We're
not
gonna
on.
have access. Oh, sorry, it's off market. Yeah.
Did you read the contract though? What is because the wholesaler set it up probably so they could get access to try to sell the deal. They assigned you
So,
that contract. What is their contract states? Because they got to enforce that contract. You guys, sometimes with wholesalers too, like as a wholesaler and someone sells deals, we like to have lots of access. So we have that written on our purchase and sale. So when I'm assigning it out to, let's say, Alex, that's in the purchase and sale. And when I'm assigning it to them, I'm selling them my rights in the terms of that contract. Therefore, their access on the contract is Alex's access now. And there's nothing they can say about that because they sold the rights to the contract already. And so I review their purchase and sale on access.
okay, I'll double check that again.
Because they might
Okay,
just also
but
not rock the boat, but also if they're a good wholesaler, good deal, try to work with them a little bit on that.
okay. I think that was it. Thank you.
Donnie, what's up, buddy?
Hey, James. Sorry if it sounds like garbage. I'm driving. Um, I was wondering, you said earlier you staged one of your flips and then sold all the furniture with it. Was that for Newport?
That was for Newport, yes.
Oh, okay. I was gonna ask, like, what does something like that generally cost? But I figured it was on the upper end. But if you're talking about the Newport house, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was for that. Well, typically, you guys, a lot of stagers will sell their furniture, but a lot of stagers also have furniture people don't want to buy and it's been moved around so much. And so I think that's always a question you can ask the stager. On that sale, we didn't tell them what the number for the furniture was. We let the buyer and that company work it out. They did give us an inventory list. It was brand new. This specific company owns a furniture company. That's why they do it too. But the staging was like 22,000 for it, which honestly, I didn't think was terrible for that price point house. And then I think they bought the furniture for like 160,000.
Oh my God, that's crazy. I'm noticing that a lot of people are coming in wanting a curated experience already. Like you were talking about turnkey, but that's like starting to become, or at least I'm noticing a lot of trends of like people wanting the full experience and not having to lift a single finger, even in, I'd say, lower valued homes. So that's interesting.
And you can always ask that. I will say almost every stager will sell their furniture. And so you can always ask, like even our more affordable ones in Seattle, if I call them and say, hey, your stage I think looks great. Would you be open to selling this? They'll give me a number. And then, or they'll give me a number on 80% of it. Maybe they won't sell 20% of it.
That's helpful. The other question I had was, so I'm going through a fun scenario right now where one of the contractor I hired to come do a project, they essentially manage a bunch of other contractor teams. It sounds like they bring on, or rather outsource their work to other teams when they're like overloaded. But they had to lay off a bunch of their own team and like can't handle one of my projects anymore. Um, but I've already paid them some of the work. So the proposal they're giving me is like, hey, we'll hand off the contract to the GC we're effectively going to hand the work to anyway, and your project manager will stay on with that GC for the remainder of the project duration. And that sounds like good and fine to me, but it also sounds weird and sketchy to me. And I guess I just want your take on that. I mean, my thinking is like, I'd like to redraft the contract with obviously the new GC, whoever that is, and have them re-sign all of the paperwork and everything. But I guess I'd love your take. Like, have you been in this situation, and what do you do? What do you have to think about?
Okay, so you're working with a company. They were basically just hiring generals underneath them. And then which is, they have a right to do that. They're a general contractor. Right. They can hire who they want as long as they're doing what they told you. They would manage that team, but then they gave you notice that they are no longer going to be in business, essentially.
It's not exactly that, but like they're drastically reducing staffing size and yeah, they're having to move their work around is what it sounds like, which it's just like not just a mismanagement of the business, but it sounds like there was malfeasance involved.
Okay. So basically they're going out of business.
Yeah, they lost a bunch of money. They can't afford to do all the work that they were going to do with the same staffing that they were going to do it. My project is one of the projects that's being affected. So
Okay. How much money have you given them already?
not much, like 10 grand.
Okay. And did they do you a solid and tell you how much they paid the general so far?
They haven't done all of the work so far has been like work that they've been doing with working with this city and drawing up plans and everything with me. So they haven't actually done any actual work, and demo hasn't started yet. So that's what
Okay.
most
So
of those fees are anyway.
will they give you a cost to date what they've spent in services, or is that
Yeah.
itemized out in their bid?
Yeah, it is itemized out, and I can get that a cost to date as well.
Are they open to just giving you the difference and then you just hiring that? And had they already got you the general like set up and bid out too?
Yeah, everything's already set up and bid out. Like they're ready to start work and everything. I mean, I don't. It sounds like this was going to be their plan all along anyway. So it doesn't feel like much actually changes. It just feels like weird that this was sprung onto me after like I brought 150 grand to the table. I didn't actually spend that yet, obviously, but still.
Oh, because they basically brought you the deal and said, hey, we can set up the construction for you and do everything for you too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I bid a bunch of different contractors. I awarded them the contract. I got everything under contract, and we get like 2 weeks into doing the work, and they're like, "Oh, actually, here's what's happening." And so, I mean, I think it's a coincidence, but I guess I'm just more wondering, like, if I do have to do this swap, is there things I should watch out for? Because my other options are not as desirable. That's why I'd probably just go through with it. But
Yeah, I would like to get them out of the mix though, if you can, and just work with the general contractor directly with them. And then just kind of have open dialogue with them. Like, hey guys, so I paid you 10 grand. You've done A, B, and C, which on your quote looks like it's about this much money. There's a balance due. How do we handle this? And if they're going, well, the balance due is what we're going to have a project manager, then I want something very clearly of like, what are the services that they are providing inside that number now?
cool, yeah, that makes sense to me. I think that's
Because
kind of the route I'm thinking. It's just like get in contact with the actual new contractor that'll be doing the work.
yeah, and then readjusting that contract because technically you signed a contract for a certain amount.
Yeah.
And you don't want them to come after you later and be like, whoa, even though they're telling you this, they could still come back and try to lean you, right? And so you almost need to like terminate and recreate the new services agreement.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking as well. Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
You guys, that is a really good question Donnie asked. Because you guys, if he does not terminate that contract and you sign a construction contract, depending on the state that you're in, you can be on the hook for that contract that you signed. You signed a legally binding contract unless and what they just stated to him was, and even though this sounds messed up, you would probably lose in court, as weird as that sounds. You want to terminate that agreement and reissue the new one, because if that general contractor takes it through the finish line for them, they can be like, well, you actually owe us the full amount because look, the services got fulfilled. And so make sure you terminate and reissue. It's really important. I've been stuck with that before in the past. Wendy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, how are
Okay,
you?
I'm good. So question about unpermitted bathrooms. So for my basement and unit, my triplex in St. Louis, there was a unpermitted like one bedroom suite in the basement. I removed it because it was just horrible. Like I don't know how somebody could live in there. Um, that was unpermitted, and now I'm told like if I were to put in a bathroom, whatever, I run into like the sewer line tap to the city where like there's a count for every fixture. like it's a particular count, like a bathroom is like a 3. And so like for the entire building, like there's a 1-inch line that goes in, and I'm right now at the edge or have exceeded that. So if I add any more bathroom and stuff like that, I actually have to like increase that line out to the city. Am I explaining this right?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's basically that you have a sewer line that can support a certain amount of capacity.
Yeah.
And if you add more capacity, they want you to update the sewer line, which can be very expensive.
Right, because it goes right out to the street, so they have to dig it out and, you know, do all of that stuff, which costs probably in the neighborhood of like 8,000 to, yeah, about $8,000 to do. So what I'm thinking about is if I don't do that, but then I get it plumbed out, so I'll do the concrete, pour in the basement. I'll make it into a bedroom. I'll put up the walls, and it's just a room. I will put in I will put in the conduits for a future bathroom to be put in. Like, so I'm gonna have to like redo the plumbing stack. But just to save some money, I'm trying to see how I can like make this remodel work and see where I can like save some money. So if I were to just like put all the put all the kind of like conduits that are necessary for a real bathroom to go in there, but not actually do it, and then get the city to come out and take a look and like, blah blah blah, and get whatever the bedroom that I built out in the basement permitted. Can I then like afterwards go back and actually put in a toilet and like, build it out after?
Yeah, so what you're asking is
I don't know how to say this.
Yeah, I
right.
gotcha. I gotcha. Yes, the answer is yes. Can you rough it in, basically not put it on the permit, rough it in, and then
Yeah.
install it later?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a rental, right? So it's not like I have to sell it and okay.
No, yeah, what I would do is document the work with photos, but yes, I mean, Wendy, I actually just did this on a house, not that scenario, but it was house had a 3-bedroom septic. We had a 3-bedroom house. We created a 4th bedroom. On our permit for the layout, we called it a craft room. If we
Yeah.
called it a bedroom, it would have triggered for us to replace the entire septic system, 30 grand. And so even though it's a craft room, it's really a bedroom, right? It's got a window, closet. That's how people are going to treat it. And so but yes, you will, and just if you ever sell that building down the road, just disclose it on your seller disclosure that hey, bathroom was roughed in. This was not permitted that way, and then we added in for the unit because it's also not common in that kind of product either.
Okay.
But yes, I would probably do the same thing if I was you.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you. That
That's
was
not
my
the right technical answer. The technical answer should be no. You should always put it on the permit and do it the way the city wants you to. But that's
Get
not
that.
how most people do it.
I get that. If I were to sell this, I would definitely do it, but I'm holding it myself. So like it's, it's me that's okay. So my second question is for concrete, like does the depth, well, I guess for a basement concrete, like does the depth like matter? Like my contractor saying I need a 4-inch concrete. Like, does that matter depending on like, I don't know if that's something that I could like, I'll go shop around. Like, do I need a 3 or 4-inch concrete? Like, does that stuff kind of matter? Cause it's on dirt now, and I don't know, like, would that save me some money? I'm just trying to find ways to save some money on that project.
Oh, okay. No, I wouldn't cut on the slab. He's
Okay.
talking about the thickness of the slab.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't do it there because it could cause like moisture issues later for you if you go too light.
Okay.
Like the water could come up underneath. It's gonna have bad insulation. It could crack out and cause
Okay.
settlement. That would not be where I would cut the cost on.
So then the walls,
And,
like
and
I
to be
had,
honest, Wendy, it's not
uh-huh.
going to cost that much difference between like a 3-inch and a 4 because
Okay.
they have to bring out the truck anyways.
Okay. So then my other question is, I had a contractor that says, "Oh, I can just go in, put in some drywall and, and finish it up." Whereas my current contractor is like, "Oh, you want to put French drain and then and then you frame it and then you drywall and then you'd have to have an air vent or something at every however feet so that it could air out and then sump pump." So it sounds kind of like it's the right thing to do, but is that too expensive? Don't like
On that, I don't, because this is in, this one in
St. Louis. It's
St.
like a
Louis, okay.
100-year-old home. Yeah, it's like limestone basement.
So here's where you're going to gamble on that is the reason he's telling you, because the sump pump, the sump pump's going to need to be there because to take the
Moisture. Yeah.
the water, well, that's for the drainage, but the sump pump will need to be installed regardless for that bathroom to pump it up to the sewer line to get it out typically.
Okay.
The moisture is, I don't know St. Louis, but I'm guessing it is because it gets hot and cold. There's a moisture there. And so you could not do it, but there's a chance that it could flood out later.
Okay.
And I would say that's money well spent. I learned that lesson.
Okay.
Especially 2008, just we didn't know as well as we know about basements. And so I would definitely put it in. Some people will red guard the whole basement.
What's that?
It's where they put it's what they put behind tile backer to waterproof it.
Oh, okay.
Keep moisture down. It will fail. I mean, if I was you, you're finishing the unit, I would definitely just put it in. I mean, and that should probably cost you $7,000 roughly.
What do you call that? Red guard?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
but it's kind of like a temporary band-aid, it's so it's what they put behind, it's way to waterproof behind tile.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think he did mention something like that. Okay, so I feel like my contractor, the one that I have now, he's expensive, but he's kind of saying all the things that are necessary.
He knows how to build it right.
Yeah, whereas I've talked to other contractors that from someone else who I know who does flips there. That contractor comes in and there's no process. Everything's like, "Oh, I can do this, I can do that." And it's everything just sounds really doable and easy to the point where I'm like, I don't know if I can trust that because but he doesn't have a process. He won't give me an actual bid like this one does. So that's why I
Yeah,
didn't
this
go
guy's
with
gonna
him.
be quite a bit more money, I'm guessing.
It is. He is a lot of money, right? He is
And you can also work it backwards though, Wendy, and go, okay, the cheap guy has purpose. You could say, hey, look, can you get me a quote for this drainage too?
Okay.
And then because they might have access to because I can call 2 drainage companies in Seattle. My guy, the people we work with will be 6 to 7. Some people will be 18 to 20.
Whoa.
And just be depending on who you call. And so the cheaper flip contractor will typically have different resources. So you might be able to call them. Another way that you could look at it too is I would almost just call a waterproofing company to go look at it for you to get a third opinion. It will be free.
Yeah.
A cheaper way to do it is to run French drains on the outside of the house. And if
instead of the inside.
the inside, it's not as foolproof, but sometimes it works. Depends on how the house is situated, and it'll cost half the amount.
Oh, that's a good tip. Okay.
You don't always have to. The way that he's proposing works. I do it all the time, especially when we're selling houses. But French drains, it depends on if the basement's got a history of water leakage already going on.
It doesn't actually. It's really dry. So I mean the ground's very dry. The walls, I need to do tuck point, but because there is some effervescent, but on the walls, but the ground, even though it's had so much rain, it's actually really, really dry.
I would have, it's general contractors, not a waterproofing company.
Okay.
I would get a couple different waterproofing companies just to give you a couple proposals because it will just give you more information and ask them, say, hey, look, I want to make sure this thing doesn't flood out later. I'd like to do an option of French drains. or what you guys think, and then you'll get some options from it at least. And then have the cheaper guy get a quote too for you, because it's not that and I don't know the guy, so he could be terrible, but if he was referred and he's worked with flippers, he might have it down, but we just have to tell him what to do. Say, hey, get me a quote for this and this as well.
Okay. Okay. All right. That
Or
sounds.
another thing you could do is have the expensive guy rough it all in, have the cheap guy finish it with drywall through.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay. Well, actually, so my my maintenance manager, he actually does flips for people. I just did not go I decided to not work with him because I was hoping to use him as my on-site like reviewer. Like he was gonna be the one to check on the work that somebody else does. If he were to be doing the work for me, then who's gonna review his work? Is kind of how I looked at it. Does that make sense? But he'll be able to do it for me like much cheaper than this guy because he'll be able to like fit me in between his projects.
I mean, honestly, if it's way cheaper, he knows the building already.
Yeah, he does. He really
I would
does.
almost go with him, and then you could almost call a home inspector just to do a couple checks at like, hey, home inspector, can you go out there and look at this house when it's in Ruffins?
Oh, that's a
And
good
then and then
point.
have your maintenance guy just send you those pictures every Friday, going, hey, what has been done? I need you to shoot from all angles.
Yeah,
And I mean, if you're going to save that much money, and on a
I
rental, it can make
would.
a big deal on your cash flow for the year.
Okay, okay. So it's not a bad idea. Okay, I was kind of thinking like, oh, is there a conflict of interest? Like, should I not? Because he's been managing that building for years, and the tenants really love him, and he's like on every like maintenance call. He's just on it. So he's very responsive on that standpoint.
I'd give him a shot.
Okay, because he looked at the bid from the GC and he's like, "Holy crap! I almost fainted. Are you serious?" Like, okay, let me talk to him then. Thank you. That was all that I had. I just needed some advice.
No, that's what these calls are for. No, I go with maintenance guy sounds good to me.
Okay, thanks.
All right, a couple questions, and we're gonna keep going. So David goes, when you take your money back, the final draw, or do you have a different? Okay, hold on. Says, when do you take your money back? The final draw. Okay, yes. Okay, so David, you're asking about that second loan.
Hi, buddy. I'm asking you when I put the money down to get my guy going.
Yep.
Right. Historically, I always take the last draw back into my pocket, and then all I've got is the down payment for the actual hard money loan.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
The problem is that like occasionally, and to be honest with you, like I'm blocked. I know that I've kind of gotten mangled there a couple times where like overages or like even on this deal that I'm doing out here now, like my contractor ended up like bailing halfway through and I had to go and get somebody else. And so that's kind of just the cost of doing business. I was just wondering if there was like a different way or it seems to me like that's the way to do it, or maybe you had a better idea. That's just how I've always done it.
You mean the advanced draw to the
Advanced
contractor?
draws. Yeah. Yeah.
I would love to not do those guys. So I like to do it smaller amounts.
Yeah.
It's just, that's who we hire. They need the money.
Yeah.
And so we break up the draws differently. I mean, back in the day, you guys, in like 2010, we would give 50% down.
I've had guys ask.
Because we would renovate a whole house for like 35 grand. And so
wow.
it was like, it was just but what I like to do is give it 10% and then another 10, maybe then 20, and just really kind of hold back that strength. Because I want to see because the thing is demo too, that always goes fast. Like, oh, demo's done, right? Like, and then they get the next check, and the second check is where you can get burned a lot of times.
Right.
And that one's just vetting, because unfortunately we have to do it that way. I have the guys that will wait on payment typically are just too much.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I haven't found, I mean, look, generally speaking, it's actually worked just fine. But a couple times I've had a problem. This last house that I'm working on right now, for some reason, he kept coming back a lot faster and I've worked with him on like 3 houses. So I like the guy.
Well, that's it. You guys, this third and fourth, they start asking for money earlier and earlier.
Yeah, dude.
And
And he
as soon
started,
as you get that into, get rid of them, guys. They got to go.
yeah, well, what happened was he kept, so like at one point he's like, oh man, like all right, Dave, we need more money. We need more money. I'm like, Jonathan, listen, I can get you more money, but like it takes me a couple days. So you're knocking this stuff out and I'm like trying to get you cash, but I'm also not really seeing it in the house. I've gotten you 10 grand in 10 days. I'm not really seeing 10 grand worth of work since I did it. Dude, I would never leave you hanging. I love working with you, David. Da, da, da. So I cut a deal with him. I was like, all right, look, I'm going to give you a little extra cash, but it's only going to be this much because I have to keep some in reserves so that when you finish, you actually have something, like I have something to give you.
Yeah.
And we made a deal. I gave him the cash and then he disappeared. And I had to find another guy to go and finish me out, what should have been $2,500, at least in my contract with the original guy, ended up costing me about 6,500, 7,000 with a new guy coming in.
Yeah, because when you bring in the new guys, it's always more money too.
Way more money.
You guys, anytime someone's begging me for, I always know I got to start phasing them out. I do think contractors have a shelf life of 3 to 4 projects typically. That's why I'm always got to bring in more and more people.
What is that? Why do you think that is?
Because they're just not good business operators. They're not good at paying their taxes, their employment tax.
Right.
They're really just moving forward and not doing their accounting. And they have a new job coming in, so they always got money in their bank. And yeah, so ways that to control it is like put down your draw schedule on that construction contract too. So when they ask, I'll be like, hey, dude, I'd love to get you money, but you're just not here. And we talked about this. You signed the paperwork. We're at where we're at.
Right.
Or what can I do to fix that? How about I buy the materials and bring them here for you? And then we take it off the top. And so I'll look at different ways to keep it moving forward without giving them the money.
Yeah, totally.
Or, all right, I will get you that check, but I need the property to this. If you can work all weekend, get it here. And as long as you get here, I'll give you that check.
Yep.
Or I'll get you that check or half the check, and then I'll go buy the insulation and bring it there for you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. I try and find ways. Cause like, I like for them to think like I'm on their team.
Yep.
And whatever you guys, I'm here to help. I'm here to help. But sometimes like in the last one, I just got into a bind. I was like, dude, I don't know what else to give you. Like I'm trying to give you more cash, but I have to see it in the house. And he'd always done really well, but we just finally hit it.
Yeah. I've had guys that you guys I never would have thought would have burned me. And you know what? Half of them, I would say, had no intention of burning me. They just didn't have an option. They were just out of money.
Yeah.
And I've had some guys work off the bill. Like, oh, dude, you guys, my plumber right now, he's paid my ass, but he blew up some stuff for me on a project. It was like 19 grand worth of damages he caused me. And he was trying to be a general contractor. He learned now he's supposed to be a plumber. And I will say he worked off that bill over a 3-year period. I would just take $1,500 off his plumbing bills. And that was just, and that's a great dude. And so I try to also find like, hey, if you can't do it, how can we make it up? But yeah, that's part of the risk in this business, guys. There's great returns, but we're hiring other people. We don't know exactly what's going on with them. We can vet them, we can check them, we've used them, but it's always usually the guys we've known that burn us. So, oh, and Dave, one of your questions was, what negative impact that means like, is it on busy road? Does it have a bad neighbor? Like you guys, if you're selling especially luxury stuff, things like busy roads or weird thing can really throw off that luxury buyer. So things that just affect, whether it's under an airplane path or next to a prison or next to commercial, anything that kind of takes away from the neighborhoodness of the house or, is a deterrent to a buyer.
Got it. So anything that would kind of knock it away at that ARV.
Yeah, just like if a buyer gets there and go, oh man, I don't like this neighbor next door.
Yeah, yeah.
Or, oh, I'm next to a bus stop.
Right.
It just things that will interrupt a buyer's perception of a house.
Cool.
Yep. Good to see you, dude.
Good to see you, dude. DTF. Look at this guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we got well, we're trying to figure out how to get it on the website.
I love it, man. I'll buy one. I'll get a hat immediately.
Yeah, it's We're going for it. We'll see what happens.
All right. All right. I love it.
Good to see you guys. For those, we've had the community's grown a lot. So Dave has been flipping all over the place, and I
Yeah.
gave him some shit on social media the other day. I was like, "Hey, get on the calls, dude. What are you doing?"
Dude, it was literally 12 hours ago. He kicked me right in the shins. And I was like, I got to get back on there. I've been trying to, just as an update, do you remember those two houses that I had that I was having trouble with? So I'm still having trouble with them. I ended up, so I guess from my understanding, the Columbus market like just stopped and things were not trading. And all of a sudden, like I have these two houses that I could not get sold. So I started going through the refinance process. That ended up, it's a whole long story. That ended up becoming a problem. I got one of the properties rented out for $2,200 a month, which at the
That's
refi,
great rent.
it's great rent. Yeah. 4-bed, 2-bath. She's a midterm, she's like an arbitrage renter. She's got midterm rental nurses and she's got 7 houses and she found mine and she's like, oh, I just love it. Da, da, da. So $2,200 a month. I think my mortgage on is like $1,300. I still want to offload the thing. I want equity. I don't care about the cash flow personally, but for the time being, that's fine. The other one, I'm in this catch-22 with the hard money lender because I'm at the absolute end of the term. And I believe now the market is heated up so that I could actually sell the house. But the second I list it, it's going to all of a sudden it's going to kill my ability to refinance because they're going to need at least 30 days of it being off market before I can refinance. So I either have to refinance and then list it, or I just gun it and just expect that I can sell it, knowing that if I don't, I'm going to have trouble getting it refinanced. And it could be 3 months before I'm able to actually get it refinanced. So it's been wild on those two houses.
If it was me, I'd hedge it and refi it and then sell.
And then
Hey,
sell it.
David, I just jumping in. I've been super interested in buying something in Columbus to furnish
Yeah.
out and do as midterm or short term. So send me the property.
Yeah, great. Happily. I would love
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys, Columbus is a really hot rental market right now.
Yeah, they're building that whole chip factory out there. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I was crushing it in Columbus for like a year and a half, 2 years. And then although anything that's cash flowing, like a duplex has done really well for me still. The single family homes is where I've had problems. Strangely. So yeah, anyway, that's good. I got another property. I have a duplex in Columbus that is slated to sell. We're going to close next week, I think. And then I got another flip out here in Utah that we're doing. And then my goal is kind of to like offload everything and start focusing on bigger deals. Less deals, but more, bigger returns is kind of the goal.
Are you still in Texas, right?
Utah.
But
I've been in LA a lot. I've been working and I've been going back and forth.
Okay.
So anything in LA.
Donnie's in LA, and then we have some new brokers also in our group from Orange County and LA.
Sweet.
Yeah, you got to connect with Abel is in our group. He does a lot of deals out that way. I mean, I do like SoCal for big margins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely connect with the SoCal guys.
Sweet. Yeah.
David, you said you're out in LA?
Say that again, brother.
You said you're out in LA a lot? We should connect.
I am. I used to live in Studio City. I work in LA a lot. I'm actually looking to purchase maybe a live-in flip and go back to LA. So we'll see.
Yeah, are you in the Facebook group?
I am.
All right, I'll shoot you a message in there.
I love it, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, there's some good SoCal guys in the group. And then Nicole just piped up. She's in San Diego.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So lots of
SoCal crew
right now.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, good to see you back.
Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you. Glad things are going so well. I'm excited for the show.
Yes, you guys. Show comes out March 1st. Annie. It's a wild thing. We'll see what happens.
It'll be good, dude.
We will see what happens. All right, Isaiah's.
Hey, James.
What's going on, bud? How are you?
Good. Nice to see you. Thanks for your time.
How you doing?
Good. So I have like a basic question, and that is, how do you establish your baseline price for renovation per square foot? Like, so like I see when I try to search in San Diego, it goes like renovation cost is like 200 all the way to like 370, 400 in some of like the wealthiest areas. So is there a way that you can have like your own like point of reference, that you do something to narrow down your starting prices, then go out for the contractors, see what they come up with? Or I just want to know like how to have like the baseline renovation cost, if there is a way to establish yourself, or customize for every house that you're looking for. For example, like in one neighborhood, like if there is a way that you can do some research and get to a point where your expectation would be around that price, and then after that, like you would have some expectation and then negotiation knowledge when GC is coming up like with their own renovation costs.
Yeah, and so this is a common question, you guys, and we all have to learn that, including especially when we're checking out new markets, or it's a new thing. The first thing I want you to do, there's a couple ways that we can do this. The first one, though, you guys, the best thing that we can do when, like, for example, when I went to Newport Beach, the renovation costs are a lot different in Newport than they are Seattle. And I had to learn, like, if I would have gone in and bought a house under the impression that I could renovate it for the same cost I could in Seattle, I would have been off by like 500 grand on my budget and for the house. So what I did, and this is the best thing that everyone can do, especially when you're just getting going, new market, what I would do, and this is what I did, is I found a fixer on there that wasn't selling either, because a fixer that's not selling, a broker will love for someone to go look at it no matter what. I would call 3 contractors. I had 3 do this with me. And I said, hey, I'm getting this house under contract. Can you come out there and give me an estimate for it? I'd have 3 contractors, though, not just because we need to get sample points on all 3. I had my scope of work written out, like we've talked about, with taking the comps. This is what I need to do. Take pictures, and then get 3 quotes. This is to kind of narrow down the price per square foot.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to take those 3 quotes and look at them and go, okay, well, one's way out in the middle of nowhere. This is an outlier. Or they might be all a little bit similar. We're going to take those 3 quotes as our sample, then divide that by the 3 quote, and that's going to give us the average price per square foot because they're bidding the same scopes. Now, if 2 are in line and one's way out, we're going to throw out the way out one, and we're going to go with those 2. That's going to give us our baseline price per square foot and people that we're going to work with. Then as we're looking at deals, if the numbers seem too high, that tells us that we still have the wrong guys and it starts taking us down, but it gives us that first number. So like even when I was getting quotes originally in Newport, the first time I was getting quotes at like 300 a foot. And I was like, what is going on? I can build a house for 300 a foot. That was my baseline. So when I was looking at houses, I was running like 250, 300 a foot. I couldn't get a deal till pencil ever. So that told me I had to go meet with more general contractors, get more quotes. And so I would always do it on the vacant houses that were fixers, that were overpriced, because you can always get through those. And then the important thing is just tell the contractors that you're putting it under contract that day, because then they have an actual opportunity to go bid. If you say, hey, I'm thinking about writing this up, they don't want to go.
Yeah.
And so let's get the baseline. And so have you found your broker yet in your market down there?
I've talked with 2. Definitely I'm going with the 1. So yeah, I have a broker now.
So let's find a fixer, because you're in San Diego. You're in San Diego, right?
Yes.
Yep. San Diego, there will be, it's just like those luxury markets, there's always overpriced junk that people are asking way too much for it. There'll be fixers on there.
100%.
And so those are the best ones. So have them pull one that, you know, have them pull one, but then have them pull like a fixed up comp for it too. Let's create that scope of work, and then let's go get those first couple estimates going. And then that's going to give us that baseline. Because you guys, it doesn't matter if we get into a deal. You know, you hear a lot of people online like, you got to get your deal done. You got to get your deal done. We are going to get a deal done, but we're going to do it in the right way. And so if we go out there and bid it 3 times with generals, that is not a waste of time. That is educating us to start working off that. And then once we get those numbers, let's say they're coming at $250 a foot, then we're tapping the wrong well. We need to go find a different way to get contractors too. So it helps us refine that to get us going real quick. And so what I would do is I would try to do that like in the next 10 days, get these quotes.
Okay, cool.
And then they just need to be apples to apples all the way through. And let's start with that baseline. The other thing that you can do is the way that we work backwards. And I talk about this in that construction budget video, and construction is go through and just start sourcing materials for, you know, pull a comp. They're going, okay, in this area, this is what home, let's say your average home that you're selling is like $1.5 million there. You're going, okay, so all the flips that are $1.5 million, this is the materials they have, and start getting the material pricing on each one of those things. Like, hey, the faucets are $50. The floors are $3.50 a foot to, you know, 3 to 4. And then let's make that material list, because then we can start working backwards for subcontractors and calling flooring companies. Hey, how much to install this for? They'll always give you a per square foot number.
Okay.
And so we can work it backwards on 2 ways. And so let's find the fixer house. Let's get 3 quotes, and then let's get the couple comps that are selling in that range, and let's start pulling, okay, these are the material, and start with just the cosmetics. You don't need to worry about plumbing. You don't need to worry about electrical, just flooring, you know, flooring, doors, trim, faucets, light fixtures.
Yeah.
Those are the things, because if we can start figuring that out, that's like 30% of our bid right there.
Okay, cool. And one more, so I have this house I was looking in Escondido. It looks okay, like the pricing and everything. So when I called the agent, he told me like there are bids that are way higher than the listing price, and it's gonna be pending like in the next couple of days. And it's been like 16, 17 days right now, and still it's on the market with the same listing price, not pending on anything. So like I don't know, like is he trying to, you know, like my question is like, can I go back to him? Like how can I go back to him, like if it's still on the market? And then is there anything that I can do? Like I can be flexible with him, ways to talk to him, like why I mean, he was so sure that it's gonna be like on pending like in the next 2 days. Now like it's been like 16, 17 days still on the market with the same price. So what
Okay.
could be the situations in these things? Yeah.
And did you talk to that broker in the first like 3 to 4 days of it being listed?
The broker that I'm like the listing, or that the one that my broker?
Oh, no, you said the broker listed it and you guys called them and said,
yes,
hey, we're thinking about putting an offer in. It might be below list.
We didn't even say like we're gonna bid list. He was just like we're interested in this, and he was like, hey, there are offers on table that are like I guess like 80,000 more than on the list. And he was like, are you still interested? And we were like, okay, I mean, if it's like 80,000 more, it's gonna be like a little bit more than that we're thinking right now, but we'll be looking. And it's still on the market with the same pricing, not on pending or anything. So yeah, so like I mean, I just want to know like if there is like ways that I can talk back to him without being annoying to the agent. I guess, I don't know, maybe he's you know, saving for something, or I don't know.
No, don't worry about annoying him. It's his job is to sell a property. You're someone who wants to buy the property. And it's you guys in. So what happens, you guys, sometimes is these brokers oversell themselves to the seller. Like, hey, we're going to price at this. I'm going to get a bid up for you. This is what I do. and they basically are doing to try to get the listing. And then what happens is they don't get it bid up and they look really bad. And so they're positioning in that way in that first. So when you talked to them, it was in the first week of it being listed.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
on the 7th
Is the
day.
seller a normal seller, or is it like a bank or a probate or anything like that?
No, it's just normal.
Okay.
And his profile is like he has like around 15 years of experience working in that neighborhood.
And that's okay. It's but you know, so what I would do, did you reach out to him or did you have your broker do it?
I did reach out to him because I didn't have any broker that time when I was reaching.
And that's okay. That's probably better with this scenario anyways. Because someone like that's going to try to pick up. One thing in California is they like to double end the deals, that's for sure. And so I would just call him, but you know, be very, you know, nice, inquisitive, but be direct too. Like, because you guys, if I'm on the other line, someone's calling me on that, and you know, you're being like a good human being. You're like, I don't want to bug the guy. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to.
Yeah, right.
And if you get that read, the guy's gonna be like, well, is this guy sure or not? And so I would just call him and say, hey, you know, we talked in the first week. Sounds like you were getting a ton of offers. I couldn't quite go to that price. I still see it's active. We are still very interested in the property. Is it worth for you to show me this home? But we're going to be closer to list price, and I might be able to go a little bit, but I need to take a look at it.
Right.
And just see what he says at that point. But you're not bugging him at all. He's just, you know, I don't know what, that makes no sense of why he was doing that, or he was running decoy on it. You know, sometimes you guys brokers already have a buyer in their pocket and they want to list it for him later too.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but like it's been on the list was like it's been 16 days more. So you normally expect by that time at least like been like on pending. So yeah, but definitely I'll go back and talk with him now. Yeah.
And he might have been pushing for a price and over negotiated too. Like that, I've done it as a broker where I'm pushing people. I'm like, no, this house is gonna be hotcakes. It's gonna be hotcakes. I'm pushing, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, I didn't get the offers I thought. Even though what the brokers are telling me, what people are telling me, I'm gonna position it that way.
Right.
But there's so many people that go hot and cold in offers that sometimes it almost like fizzles out real quick. I had a property I listed this weekend and I thought we were gonna get multiple offers, but everyone telling me, and you know what? It's now Tuesday and we have none. And so we're positioning ourselves that way based on the information we're getting. And so, you know, I don't worry about bugging them ever though. Hey, I'm a buyer. If he buys it, he gets paid twice with you.
Right.
And say, I'm still very interested in it. You said it was kind of a hot property. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but if it's still available, I'd love to come take a look at it. I'm serious. Can you show it to me?
Right. Okay. Cool. I'll reach out.
Yeah. And just be direct as is.
Cool. I will. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
because you're being very courteous, which is the good thing to be. You're like, hey, well, I don't want to bug the guy. It's just where those are you're dealing with salespeople though. So it's a different, you know, I'm gonna get you a little firmer with some of the contractors and salespeople. We got to be polite, we got to be respectful, we got to be factual, but we got to be firm.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Cool. And then let me know. I'm in 2 calls. I want 3 bids. Joel, what's up, buddy?
Hey James, how are you?
Good, man. How are you, dude?
Good, good, good. Hey, so I've got a couple questions on a project I'm working on in Northgate.
Oh, cool.
So there is finished space underneath the deck. And geez, I really didn't put much thought into it when I bought it. It was just kind of used as storage. But then looking at it, I'm a little concerned on a couple things, just like appraisal wise, you know what I mean? Like how that could affect the buyer on an appraisal. And I know I could go a couple different directions on how I finish it. So initially I was planning to just fully finish it out, like drywall, because it's got heat, it has electric, it has lighting. And then I've kind of decided to shift a little bit, and then I think I wanted to try to make it like indoor outdoor space and maybe finish it with siding inside. And then there are big windows, so there's like 4 foot by 2 foot windows. There's like 3 of them along the whole side of the wall. There's a big sliding door, so I was also maybe thinking of trying to market it as a sunroom. But it is built, like it's solidly built. I've had framers look at everything and they said, yeah, this thing is constructed well. It just wasn't permitted. So I guess how would you handle that space?
Well, I just did a project not too different than that. Okay, so it's in the basement. Basement leads out, and it's basically an
Yes.
enclosed undercover deck.
So it's an early 60s split entry home.
Okay, and then it has a deck, and they added underneath the deck. Is that right?
Correct. So
Okay.
it's about a 8 by 25 foot space. And then in the basement, going to the finished space is like a standard wooden door. So you open the wooden door and then you're in that finished space.
Okay, and do you have permits on the job?
I do not. We had an electrical permit for a panel,
Okay.
but that's about it.
No, that's okay. I just wondering because if you had permits, I'd tell you not to do it because then you get kicked back into plan review. It's got a slab. Does it have electrical? Does it have plumbing or electrical in there?
It does. So it's got a slab and then it's got electrical. Electricians looked at it and they said it's dialed in pretty well. So whoever did it well. I mean, it's been there for probably at least 20 or 30 years because it has original, well, I don't know if they're original, but aluminum windows that are super old. And that's kind of, there was a leak and they were leaking from the windows. So.
All right, are you keeping the old original windows?
No, we replaced them.
Ah, man, if it was me, I'd throw a cadet heater in there and call it finished space.
Gotcha.
Because you just need to get it finished technically. You might have to deal with it on the appraisal a little bit, but I would say that's more of a coin toss, if anything. And I would just throw a heater in because you have flooring, you have windows, you have electrical. It's heated. I would count it as square footage, and then when I listed the property, I would list the property based on an as-built, saying per measurements.
Gotcha. So, okay. So you're saying I should just include that square footage in the living space square footage on the MLS?
I would. Yep.
Okay.
I wouldn't. Now, Joel, if I was buying that deal, I would buy it at the square footage that was finished. Because that protects you on your dispo.
Yeah.
But I think it's just upside, and I think you'll be all right on that.
Okay. So you don't think there's nothing I have to really worry about? So I guess the only thing I would have to worry about is if somehow get red tagged or something, then they could put me into plan review.
Yeah, or the appraiser could call it, and it doesn't quite comp for a 2,000 square foot house. But again, it's kind of like, hey, it was built there. Yeah, I mean, the one thing is like with the appraisers, when they have asked me about it, I'm like, well, this thing was done 30 years ago. Seattle only keeps tape until 1990. So what am I supposed to do here?
Yeah.
And then also disclose it on the Form 17 for sure. Like, hey, this was basically, it was an enclosed sunroom. It already had electrical. You just threw a heater in there, and now it's finished space.
Okay. So it's easy as that then.
Yeah, I just kind of own it when we do things, like it's just like, hey, this is what we did. This is what we did to protect it. And and then always like I like to get a lot of pre-inspections done on our houses that if they're not permitted for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's, as long as the buyer knows, hey, the previous homeowner had done this, I replaced the windows, I threw a heater in, and technically it's finished space, and that's how they did this over 30 years ago.
Okay. Okay. Second question is the deck. They have 36-inch high railings, which are solid. They're in good condition and they're pretty new. Do you recommend bringing them up to current code?
Are they cool like mid-century railings or no?
No, they're like modern DIY-ish, probably done within the last 5 years. But they're solid, like they're, you know, if you touch them, they're not like moving. But I just know that a lot of inspectors nowadays, well, codes change in Washington, right, to 42-inch
Yeah.
high railings.
I honestly, because of where you are and the size of house, that's probably a family home. I would fix that.
Okay.
Because someone's gonna be worried about their kids going over. The home inspector's gonna call it for sure. And then
Yeah.
sometimes they can kind of red flag the rest of the you know, the renovation on the inside, because they're like, wait, so you didn't build your railings code? No, I didn't build those. The previous homeowner did. Well, why didn't you
Yeah.
fix them? And they just,
Yeah.
and then they're like, but you didn't get a permit for the house. And then it starts domino affecting.
Yep.
And so if it was me, I'd probably fix those. Plus, I just don't like if a kid could fall over that rail.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, if it's like a really cool mid-century railing that was built that way, I'm leaving it.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, there's nothing cool about it. So
I would probably fix that.
okay. Cool. Yeah, no, I was planning on it, but I was just wanted to see how you would handle it. So
Yeah, I'll let stuff slip that's not code on railings and that, you know, staircases and landings, if especially if it was built that way and it was kind of part of the architecture. But I'd probably fix that.
okay. Cool. Sounds good.
Cool. Good to hear from you, Joel. Andy, what's up, buddy?
Hey, we're rocking the hat too.
Those hats are not for kids, Andy.
It's good. It's good enough for him. Hey, so I'm up and running with Easy Button, and I just wanted to make sure I had my ducks in a row form-wise. And I can ask the folks at the title company too, but what other forms, but besides the purchase and sale, do you kind of have to have?
For off market.
For off market.
Well, you want the distress home, if you're doing foreclosures, you want the distress homeowner
Okay.
disclosure.
Okay.
That's where it's in 14 point or 16-point font about that they're selling their house and acknowledging that.
Okay.
Um,
Do I need something with like the legal description on it, right? That they've signed.
yes. Yeah, that needs to be part of any purchase sale to ratify the legal description.
Okay.
And then you want to make sure Form 17, seller disclosure.
Yeah.
Or have an addendum stating, because with what you're doing, you probably want to waive Form 17 in
Yeah.
disclosures. And so I would just have a blank addendum or addendum set up for you that's already print out, just saying purchaser buying property as is, whereas waives the right to a seller disclosure statement.
Okay.
Because A, it's going to help you get the deal, and also it just makes it simpler for that seller that you're talking to.
Okay.
And that's really the gist of it. Oh, if you're working on distressed foreclosures or something, you want to have an authorization to speak to the bank.
Okay.
Because sometimes you know, like if you're opening up escrow on that property and they're in foreclosure, they got to get a payoff ordered from the trustee, and they need an authorization to do that.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, so not too many. And these are all basic forms. I think the majority of them are on the website, right? I know
Yes, yep.
mail and legal description, Form 17. Well, I can get the form to waive Form 17. I was gonna talk to Vlad too, just to make sure I have my ducks in a row, or somebody, whoever it may be. But yeah, this is more or less what I thought, but I just wanted to double check.
Yeah, you could talk to Vlad and just pop in when Carrie's there too, my transaction coordinator,
Oh, yeah.
and just do a run through with her.
She'd probably be better than Vlad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, we're stoked about the show.
Yeah, I know. You guys, Andy will be, he's on it.
Both of us are.
Yes, you are. Your house turned out killer.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah, I'm excited to kind of get things up and going. They start feeding the pipeline here on Monday. So trying to get everything with the CRM up and running and the website up and running and all that stuff. So everything's ready to go.
You got a plan of attack for calling these people immediately, dude?
I have a plan of attack for the first few months, but I honestly think I'm going to end up having to hire one of their guys to kind of get me to that appointment stage, because I'm not going to have the time.
Yeah. They don't burn the lead.
Yeah.
So make sure you got that person that can take the call.
Right. Yeah. So I'm going to try it on my own just so I can get a feel for things for, a couple months, and then probably reevaluate from there. So.
Yeah. And then one other thing, Andy, too, is, talk to some listing brokers about taking the slop leads.
Yeah.
On the clean ones. Who I'll recommend, but you know what? Find the listing broker or a listing broker that's hungry, that will really pound and work on those leads. You want a more high energy salesperson on those deals.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times what I do is I just if I'm meeting with the seller and we pass it off to them, we take 50-50 on those. If I'm just kicking them a lead, like, hey, this guy called in, they want 900 grand, I could maybe pay him 650. Do you want to, I'll refer it over to them, and they'll just pay us a 20% referral fee if they stick the deal or not.
Yeah. Okay.
But you want someone that will pound those leads like they're gold, because that 20% referral fee will pay for easy button leads for a month for you. So it's more about paying the bills than it is making money with it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So even I know you're friends with Molly. She's a little pit bull.
Yeah.
That would probably be like that kind of personality is what you want.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Are you up here? You're up here on Thursday, yeah? Thursday next week.
Yep. Yep.
Release party thing or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll be.
Cool.
Again on Monday. I fly on Monday, come back Tuesday night. I got a cool little athlete event investing thing here, and then back on Thursday. I'd fly back and forth next week.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hey, Jason, I'll shoot you a message about that.
Sounds good, James. Thank you.
Anybody wholesaling, you always take the swing. If you find that broker that can try to take them on, the conversion rate, I can tell you, is not high. For almost all people I know that do it, but it's just that one deal. Like, even if we get 6 deals a year, that's like 40 grand that goes into our marketing. So definitely way to always look for ways to subsidize your costs. But yeah. Well, cool, guys. I think we got through most of the questions. Any other last minute burners? Anthony, I saw you popped your camera on.
Yes, I just have a quick question. It's my first time asking too, and I'm still pretty new, but was wondering if I found this like an older 1920s, I think 1950, 1920 homes, and I know that they're still on, but they're still on older electrical wirings, but the inside of the home is more of a cosmetic work. Should I still gut it and change all the wirings and the plumbing, because it's still galvanized plumbing on most parts of it? On situations like that,
it depends on the comps. That's what we want to look at is, no, you don't always need to replace all the systems because in some of those more affordable markets, you just can't. It's not normal. We actually do a lot of loans for this investor down in like Aberdeen, which is pretty far away. And he's got his process, he makes them shiny, and we're looking at it like, man, your wiring is old, but that's just what people buy there. That goes with the price point. If we have older wiring, older plumbing, we want to make sure it's working right. Like we might even flush the plumbing pipes. We want to make sure that there's no circuits that are, frying out or not working correctly. And so we kind of do more of a safety inspection, cosmetically update it. But it depends on the comps. So when you go through your comps, I want you to go through pictures. And I went over this in like the budgeting and a couple of the recorded calls when I was doing like the virtual walkthrough through photos. Zoom in and look at what's going on in those kitchen areas and those outlets. And if they're 3-pronged or they're there, then you need to rewire it. But if they're not, and there's no, then you just need to make it more safe than anything else. People will push back. They'll hit it on inspection sometimes. But if you're priced accordingly, because there's gonna be like the super renovated comps will be selling here. The ones that are more cleaner will be selling here that have been updated. And so it's just a matter of, do the comps have it or not? And it will scare off some buyers, but when your listing broker selling it, it's like, well, this is what we're selling. You're not buying. If you want to fully rewired, fully replumbed a new house, then go buy the more expensive one. And so as long as the comps don't have it, I don't always change it out. But also look at, when you're looking at those can be tricky. Look at the layouts too. So like if a bathroom on a more cosmetically updated house, but it's a little bit more normal, and yours has like a toilet in a weird spot because it's an older house, just make sure that the spaces are all matching up too. But you don't technically need to do it.
And I'm not, because I've heard that some agents were saying that some insurance company doesn't insured home insurance company doesn't insure some house that has a knob and tube. Is that accurate, or is that just what they're saying?
Nope, that is accurate. Some insurance companies won't. And so you don't need to worry about that because you're going to get construction insurance, flip insurance. But the buyers, yes, it will prevent. But at the same time, if I have comps that are selling, they have the old wiring, and that buyer bought it, and they bought it with a conventional loan, they weren't cash, they got insurance on the house. Now, in my opinion, Anthony, most of the times we just end up rewiring them all and doing them all. But we're also going for that high comp because if we just do all the work, we'll sell it and make more money anyways. And so if I was you, I'd always try to plan it for the high comp, and doing everything. But if they don't have it, you don't need to do it. But that's why you got to make sure that there's no safety hazards, there's no issues and that kind of stuff.
Got it. So just depending on what the comps are giving me, then I'll plan on it, or so that I can still make it work, right?
Yep,
Just
correct. Yeah, it's all based on comps. And that's hard, you guys. Sometimes, like, it's kind of like, should I open my kitchen wall or not? I really want to, but none of the comps do, so I'm gonna leave it alone. It's or if I know a lot of flippers, especially the more affordable, they leave all the galvanized, but then they might keep some of the older wiring, but put a new panel on just to have a new panel. And so they won't rewire the whole thing, but everything else is ungrounded, but at least has new panel and breakers on the outside.
Got it. It's good to know. Thanks, James.
Cool. No, good question, you guys. That's hard. That's why it's so important to look at those comps. I'm just making sure we have. All right, guys. Well, I think that's the end of the questions. It's a good call tonight. Next week, we're going to be going over selling your property, comps, and what to expect out of your real estate brokers, guys. Because we got to put them to work. So stay tuned for that. I will see you guys next week.
Wait, sorry. So sorry. Can
Oh,
I
yeah.
ask one quick question
Of
about
course, you got
private money lending?
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, yes, I saw that.
So for such a quick return, do you always get a second position, or like for a quick like turnaround type of lending, like someone needs money for 3 months or something like that, what do you do like as for collateral?
It depends on the size of loan. And oh, what do I do for collateral? How much do I charge?
Collateral and charge, but
Okay, well,
collateral
collateral, I
mostly.
always get a deed of trust no matter what. I want a deed of trust and a promissory note against the property. I will do first and second position loans.
Okay.
The second position, I like to do it with operators that I know a little bit better, or that the deal is such a super LTV that I'm good with it. Or if they have an exit strategy built in, like with Alex, if someone, if someone wants to borrow 20 grand just to help them float through the construction process, and I know at the end of their process, they're going to be able to pay me off with that last draw, I might go into second position, could be a little bit higher even at that point, but the exit is that their construction lender's paying me off because they have the full amount. So I want to look at the construction loan amount, what the scope of work is, and also make sure that they're covered to where they can pay me off at the end. That kind of loan I charge a lot more for, because honestly, even doing a loan for 20 grand, there's a certain cost that goes with that. And the good thing about those for me as a lender, I'm like, well, I'm going to charge 18% on 20 grand. So I'm making 18% on it. It's not that much because it's 20 grand, but it protects, I'm a second position loan, but I know I'm going to get it paid off in 90 days too with the construction rehab loan. But
Okay.
I always get deed of trust, promissory note, and always get title insurance coverage too.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. And Wendy, because I know you want to there's certain ways to like have you watched the private money lending course yet?
I'm in the middle of it. I'm
Okay.
in chapter 2, I think. So
And I'm going to be doing some updates to that too, because I'm the good thing for our group is I'm meeting with some new securities attorneys just to review paperwork and update them a little bit more too, and create some other agreements for our group. You guys, this is why this group is good value. I'm probably spending 10 grand with this attorney alone just to make sure we have really good documents, even more different ways that we can do deal documents. And so you'll have these when I'm done with them. Yeah, and if another way, Becky, who was in our group, was buying notes for a while. Now she's doing loans too. And so you can always reach out to me, Wendy, too, because I'll sell you a portion of a note and you get to go through the process. And then Becky now is just lending people money in our group.
Hmm.
And so, so she would buy notes off me for 10%. That's what her rate was. Now she's doing loans at 12% in points.
I don't really know much about that at all. So I would love an education on what that means.
Oh,
It's
I'm buying a note?
yeah, like I don't even know what that, yeah.
You once you get through the course, you'll know
Okay.
a little bit more.
Okay.
But yeah, I can. And so yeah, so like, because actually I use it. It's a way to actually maximize your private money lending. So
Okay.
like, because I do hard money, which I have a chunk of money in my hard money fund, which we raise capital for as a debt fund. That debt fund pays out me, it's about 10% interest roughly. That
Okay.
money's always working though. And so you can invest in a debt fund or not. That's an equity fund. That's like our company interest funding. I invest in that company because I just know the collateral. I know it gives me a great return and I'm not worried about it. And so I'm an investor in my own company. So there's options like that, but then I keep my private capital separate too, because I want to try to make higher returns. And so I'll do loans. And so let's say I have 2 million in loans I'm doing at a time. Now, if I have a really good client or borrower that's like, hey, can you lend me 300 grand? I don't have it. What I do is I will sell a portion of my note as a loan participation to an investor that knows me well. And they buy a portion of the note and they're making 10% on their money. So let's say I do a loan for 250 grand. You have 100, you want to put it in. As a lender, I'm lending that out at 12% to a deal I vetted. I've already funded it. I have the note and deed of trust, the title insurance. It's all been perfected and I'm collecting payments. The investor's buying a portion of my note with a loan participation agreement, which now I'm paying, let's say you, the 10% interest on that investment during that time. And so I'm basically the loan servicer too, as a private investor.
Okay. I think I get what you're saying.
But yeah, if you interested in buying a note, we can definitely hop on a call because there's a few people in here that buy. I sell notes to a lot of my buddies too.
Yeah, I think I'd be interested in that for sure. Could
Yeah, you know what I
could
do a
I
lot
email
too
you?
is I use my 401k a lot too now.
Okay.
So I just did a loan for Ashley Care for I'm bigger for out of my 401k because that's
Uh-huh.
paying me 12% interest, no tax on that, which is great.
I definitely want to talk to you about this.
All right, we'll set up a
Yeah.
time. That's yeah, because that's we can
How do I reach you for that?
let me
Because you know that Columbus home that that I'm in whatever I'm working the issues through with the firehouse. They're buying it, but they're officially buying it back. We're just working through the details of like how much. So I do have some money that's coming in that I need to put somewhere. So that's why I'm kind of like really interested in the private money lending.
I love it. I use it. I just sent you a
Okay.
message on that.
Okay.
It's
Thanks.
I do it all the time. So it's like like right now I have a bunch of money in private money lending, but then I might have just bought a really expensive flip in Newport. So it allows me to free up capital so I can still do it. It just allows me to keep my money working all the time. And they're short, a lot of times they're short term, sometimes they're long term. It just depends on who the borrower is. But well, cool. All right, guys. Well,
Thanks so much. I'll
yes,
text.
no, and we can, and you know what? That's when I get some of these new agreements, I might do a teaching call on this on Monday too, like how to cash flow your hard money company with low money in, basically.
Awesome. I mean, it sounds like notes would be an easier way to get into, because like I'm listening to the course and so far it's kind of like I need to go find good operators. Like just because I have money doesn't mean like I could just, so I also have to get really good at underwriting. So a lot of the flip knowledge transfers over to private money lending, right? Because I also have to like look at how good the deal is. If their underwriting is good. So it's almost like I'm doing as much work in private lending as I am in the flip, other than like, actually getting the flip done. But the beginning portion is similar.
Yeah, and it's about the
Betting the
concept.
deal.
Yes, you got to protect it because a lot of people can get. I mean, 2008, I saw one family lose $100 million in lending. It was
Oh my.
gnarly. I mean, that was detrimental, but it's very risky if you lend it to the wrong person or don't set it
Right.
up correctly, don't secure it. I definitely been hearing a lot of grumblings from people online that were raising money during the pandemic days. They're like, yeah, I gave them money, I'm not getting paid now. I'm like, that's not what this is. It's about underwriting the deal, find the operator, and then there's buying notes is great. That's essentially how I got in the business 2008. And you can buy notes. It's steady. You make a little bit less because you're dependent on the person doing the operations. But you kind of get in the swing of it. And then like Becky was great for me in our group. She was happy. She was getting 10%. I'm like, now Becky, it's your turn to do loans.
Yeah.
Because she's going to make more. Right. And that's kind of where I'm trying to help you guys get to.
Yeah.
And she likes lending it to people in our group.
Yeah.
They're underwriting, they're trained, they can look at it. Or, who knows, your property management guy that flips, that might be a person that we can groom into an equity lending position to where you can flip out there. He's running the project, you're making a chunk and not doing all the work and dealing with all the construction.
Yeah.
And so there's so many different ways that we can, and that's what I'm working on, is some really good equity lender agreements for people or for me. And I'm just going to give it to you guys. But there's so many ways, but yeah, it's about just kind of understanding it, like going through the process, like, okay, here's the paperwork. What's the right paperwork? What note am I buying? How do I read that? What was the title insurance on it? There's these vetting checklists you got to do.
Okay. I'm actually involved in something that and that sounds almost like I'm doing a note, but this is like a person, it's called Stairway Capital. They basically sound like hard money lenders to large developments, like, and then they're raising capital and promising 8% return. So it's like, it's better than like putting my money in the bank because they're guaranteeing 8%
But what's their guarantee back with? That's what we want to dig into.
back with real estate. They're backed with the real estate deals that they have under, under their, and it's also like a personal guarantee too by the by the manager of that
Okay,
group.
so
So,
they're a debt fund.
oh, is that what that's called?
Yeah, so they're
Okay.
a debt fund. They're issuing debt. You should be making more than 8% in that scenario.
Oh, really?
You should be more like in a debt fund scenario as a passive investor, you should be trying to get at least 9. And
Okay.
you can typically get 10.
Huh. Man, you
Um,
should have a whole class on all this.
I have to be a little careful with that. I'm working on that actually. Randomly, I'm talking to because I can't be because there's a fine line about securities teaching too.
Gotcha.
But there's like, for example, if you came to interest funding, which is an equity fund, which actually gives you more security. Debt fund is basically the collateral is the fund who owns real estate, right?
Yeah.
They're issuing you the debt though, so they're the ones guaranteeing it. With an equity fund, you own part of the equity in all those loans, so you're more secured against the property. And then typically you want to know, but when you're doing that, you want to know exactly what they're lending on. Like interest funding, we lend on first position loan deeds of trust in Washington State for 6 to 12 months short-term loans. So it's like, what the collateral is. When it's more like, oh, we do developments and this and that, it's like, well, what's the real collateral, right? And so because your loans are only good against the collateral. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that company. I don't know them. But that's why I don't go in big debt funds. I like smaller ones. Oh, and I don't even really like debt because they're issuing you debt. Equity, you're tied to the company. So if they have to dissolve when everything's sold off, you have a portion.
Okay.
And so like interest, it's an equity fund. And then it's not, we do an average because equity, the rate floats with our average lending rate. So 1 quarter investors are making 10.5 or maybe close to 11. If it's really competitive in the market, we got to drop our rates a little bit. Then, they might go down to like 9.8. And so it's reset every quarter, but it's all about the collateral. When you're looking at investing in one of those funds, it's what are you lending on? What's your average loan to value, right? Because if they're advancing a lot of construction out and they're doing like interest funding, we're 15 to 20% down. So we know what our average loan to value is. Our average loan to value is 71% in our portfolio. So it's low. If they're doing new construction and they're at 80%, that means you're in a much riskier position.
Okay.
And so, again, who owns Fairway?
Fairway, Austin Fowler. Yeah, he's basically like, the way we kind of understand it, it's almost like he's starting private banking. I'll text it to you. I'll text you like their thing. It's interesting because I'm like, how do I know what you own
Oh,
based on
Stairway,
like
not Fairway.
No, it's Stairway, I think.
Yes, Stairway.
Yeah.
Austin Fowler. Like, how long has he been doing this for?
Like 8 years.
Okay. Stairway.
Yeah, and he's actually like kind of trying to teach people who participate how to be a manager yourself. Basically, you can also go out and get funding and then you can loan that money out. So you become like, you can go out, gather people to join your fund, and then you can you can then loan that money out as hard money lender.
Yeah, I've seen that. They got to be, there's a difference between a fund and like a note participation.
Okay.
That one. And so, yeah, why don't we, let me kind of break that. Let's hop on a call and I can kind of break that down.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people teaching that
Okay.
they need securities attorneys. That's what they need.
Okay.
It's
All right. Thank you.
all right. Thanks, Wendy. Bye. See you guys.